Off the Ball Breakfast.
With UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
This is Luke Littler's world and we're just living in it. Welcome to Off the Ball Breakfast this Friday morning, the first Friday of 2025. One of the more underrated Fridays. There's not the Friday feeling as we slowly meander back to work. We'll be joined in 5 minutes' time by Ronan O'Gara in his usual Friday slot. He had a mixed Christmas, 1 win, 1 defeat. We'll talk to him about that. Harry Byrne's moved to Bristol Bears, Ireland's Provincial problem, and much more besides. We'll also have the Friday papers with my co-host who's about to be revealed. Then we'll have the football journalist John Brewin to talk about Liverpool versus Manchester United this weekend at Anfield. That could be any score, literally any score at all. Plus the rest of the Premier League action, and Wayne Rooney, maybe the management career that's not going so well for Wayne. Then we'll also have Linda Maher, who's assistant features editor at the Irish Daily Mail, to talk about Luke Littler and Michael Van Gerwen, who are playing tonight in the World Darts Championship final. But I'm not alone in the studio. I am, of course, with co-host Kathleen McNamee. Kathleen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. The way you said Linda's name there, it sounded like Linda Martin. I was like, I'd love the idea of Eurovision star Linda Martin coming on the show to talk about the darts. I'm sure Linda Maher would be brilliant as well, but...
What year did she win the Eurovision? That is, though, 0879 180 180.
Before my time.
Or on the live YouTube comments. New Year's resolutions, Kathleen. Are you a fan? Do you have any?
We had this conversation yesterday morning with Andy Claffey and Arthur, and I said, no, not particularly.
Why's that?
I just don't find January a particularly productive time for me.
I think January is very underrated as a month.
Well, so does Arthur. Arthur also sent me a New Yorker article about 5:30 this morning talking about the perks of January and New Year's resolutions. So
the days get brighter, right? It's November is the most depressing by far. November brings back to school time. There's loads of exams.
No, but November you have a good run into. But sure, in January you're far away from Christmas.
No, January.
There's nothing good in the run-in of the next couple of months. Easter is the next exciting thing, and
we have that new bank holiday that we get in February. I tell you what, January is the Monday of months, right? In that there's no expectation of a Monday, right? You go in and if it's a good day, that's great because it's Monday. Tuesday I'd say is the worst day of the week.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's your November. Do you know what I mean?
Nah.
Now look,
strong disagree.
We may disagree on the January thing. I think I'm right, but what does brighten up most people's Januaries is the darts. And last night was sensational. Even though both semi-finals finished 6-1 to the victors, there was actually strangely a competitive element to both semis at one point.
There was an annoyance in that there was so many moments when both the losers could have taken it and they just didn't take their moments. I mean, the best one for me was probably when Bunting looked like he was going to go 4-2 and then Littler pulled.
That was huge. Yeah. That was massive. And same in like Van Gerwen, who's not had a great year, just rolled on and was nearly flawless at the end of the semi. And the only time he made any mistake was the post game.
Have
interview.
won F-all yet?
Yeah, and he was right. And then it's all going to come down to tonight. But what do you think will happen tonight? What's your prediction?
I don't know. It's a really interesting one because on paper you would say that Littler, having had the better year, is probably on the more upward trajectory, but also Van Gerwen has been here so many times before. He has, he knows how to handle the energy on the day. Well, there's an argument about that because he's been there several times and hasn't won it, but I really don't know. I would like to see Littler do it just because I think it's a great story. And I think Van Gerwen is probably going into this playing a bit of a pantomime villain, which is very enjoyable from an outside perspective as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want. Also,
Van Gerwen's won it 3 times. This will be his 7th final. He's most recently won it in 2019, and he was in the 2022 final. That's Michael Smith, but this is 2 in a row for Luke Littler, who doesn't turn 18 until later this month. It's quite sickening. We were actually discussing pre-show how much is he worth. He's made 600,000 roughly on earnings from the game alone. But you imagine a bit more on top of that.
That's just in this year, isn't it?
He won Young Sports Personality of the Year on BBC, came runner-up in the main one as well. He's the darling of England, and he's backed it up as well from last year. I mean, it was just his... I'm
curious to see how himself and Van Gerwen interact with each other tonight.
It was very friendly last night.
But it is with a lot of them. Like, even when you think back to last year's final with Humphreys as well, same thing. they're all very, and like that's fair enough. He is a kid on the stage as well, but I don't think he's going to get that from Van Gerwen. So I wonder, will that shake him at all? Will the psychological elements? That's the thing that I always wonder about when they're on stage. How much psychological battles can you do when everyone's watching you?
Yeah.
There's only two people on stage. You know, what are the little things? I know we've talked to Jenny about it in the past, and in individual sports, it seems to be a far greater thing.
Yeah, it's a remarkable rise as well for Littler in such a short space of time, and just how mature he is in the way he carries himself. It was exactly this time last year. I was in Gran Canaria, and there were whispers of his name around the pool about this kid, Luke Littler. Have you heard about this Luke Littler?
I just love this idea that like Luke Littler's name was on the wind in Gran Canaria. Nowhere else.
That's what it was. It was like this kid,
Gran Canaria,
phenomenal stuff.
coming across the sea to you.
and look at him now, a household name in 12 months. That's what you can do, kids. You put your head down. I do love the entrance music, Titanium. Is that the name of the song?
Yeah.
Titanium. With Bunting's.
Do you want to give your rendition of it there? You're doing some beautiful singing before
I
we
don't
came
think
on
anybody
air.
wants to hear that or see it beyond you in a
I don't
pre-show
know.
warm up at about 7:27.
I reckon if we chucked an old poll into the YouTube comments there,
Possibly.
it would be very, very
Possibly.
obvious.
Let us know. Yeah, let us know on YouTube account. But Bunting, he was the conductor of the orchestra of his fans.
But he
which I
just
thought
looks
was
like a
amazing.
dad at a wedding who wants to get into it but knows he can't quite. And then when it hits the big moment, he just does his little like fist bump to them all.
Oh, he's right, that part. You know, let the crowd do the work for you there. Sure, he can't be losing his voice or his concentration for the fight ahead. But I love that. What's your darts entrance music?
Oh,
It's different to a boxing.
yeah.
Which I realised.
Say, I feel like for boxing or something, you'd go at like the chorus.
The Corrs,
Yeah.
as in the Irish
Yeah, something like
sibling group.
Yeah, something like that I think would be kind of interesting. But then for the boxing one, I think I would want like a pumped up tune. Probably do a bit of Dua Lipa or something.
Yeah, have a think about it. I
Yeah.
went Baker Street J Rafferty for boxing. I'll go Loaded by Primal Scream for darts.
Do you know what I do? And it'd be so unpopular in a darts crowd.
What?
Westlife, World of Our Own. Because I'd be having a good bop along to myself on the way up.
I'd say that would get the people going.
I
right,
mean,
for sure.
these people have also been sitting around drinking pints all day. So
Exactly.
I'd say it wouldn't
most
take
things
much.
will work. You could
Yeah.
play Mad World by Gary Jules, and some people start singing onto it and jumping. I was on Netflix there the other day, and I was reminded by Netflix that they have signed a deal with WWE. So they're going to be showing all the episodes of Raw and SmackDown and the pay-per-views. And I thought, yeah, that's fair enough. I don't, it's 20 odd years since I followed wrestling. But Kathleen, it was
That's definitely not what you
incredible-
thought at the moment.
an incredible discovery that they have. I actually, this is one of those memes where it's like, I don't know who to share this with, right? I don't know, can't share it with you or Arthur because you're just blinking at me, right? But there's a certain cohort out there from the Attitude Era of WWE that this is a momentous day, right? So if you type in on Netflix, if you have Netflix, type in any single pay-per-view from any era at all, the whole thing will come up now. I was watching Royal Rumble 2000 there during Christmas. I flaked on Royal Rumble 2001.
Did you see your family at all over
And
Christmas?
then WrestleMania 2001 is on the works too. That's The Rock against Austin, My Way by Limp Bizkit. I'm like welling up inside here. It's unbelievable what's happening.
I'm just imagining you on like Christmas Day sitting there with your little tiny human on your lap, just like kind of bouncing her up and down and being like, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And her just like also blinking.
Yeah, I'm going to try and naturally get into it, but hopefully she will. We'll get to the papers very shortly, but first, OTB Breakfast is with UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate, or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. Ronan O'Gara, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you?
Are you well? Are you a man for the New Year's resolutions?
No. I'm not New Year's Eve either. I was set a 2 hours sleep by the time midnight had come. So
Ronan is a man after my own heart.
Sorry,
Exactly how I spent my evening, and I also don't like New Year's resolutions.
But I was about to say it to you there, Ronan. I was like, oh, really? You're not a New Year's person, but I don't know anyone who's a New Year's Eve person. It's like someone saying I don't like being micromanaged, as if it's a big thing, like as if it's a unique take. It was like everyone says it, and I don't know anyone who likes New Year's Eve, so I'm not surprised by that take.
yeah, the Frenchies like this because I went for a verre, which they call a glass, at around 5 o'clock with Jess. But it was strange because obviously it happened to be outdoor, so having a beer in the kind of the marché in the market in the town in La Rochelle, but there was thousands out.
Yeah.
But no one told me bring gloves or bring a hat because it was like bushing back in the 80s, well, in the 90s for me. So it was no, but home for 9 o'clock and in bed for 10 o'clock. Yeah, but
Cozy. How was the Christmas
maybe
overall?
it's a more reflection on me because I'm a bit of a Grinch, you know. But that's all right too.
I know. I think you are speaking on behalf of many people. How was the Christmas in the end? I know there was a decision to be made about when you're going to travel back on Stephen's Day.
It was wonderful. I went to Wicklow.
Oh.
I got. I've kind of snuck away a few times with the family to the Powers Court, so shout out to that place. That place is very special.
It is nice. It's very nice.
Yeah, really nice, really classy, unbelievably good staff. And I had it with my brother in. He lives in Dublin, and my other brother was there. And my folks came up on Christmas Eve, so first time doing that, but it was different, but it was cool. Got out on the course in Powers Court, played 9 holes with the lads. So I think the groundskeeper had a few extra days work after the hacking that went on, but course was soft. But we made a few divots, that's for sure. But it was enjoyable.
What do you play off in golf?
No, I don't have a handicap. I was kind of a guy who could play.
Yeah.
But it's such a great sport, you know, but I think it's very sociable, isn't it? But really enjoyable when there's sunshine and good weather. But it was the opposite in Powers Court. But it was we got hired the best of clubs, and we had Pro V1s, imagine, and we were belting it, Colm and Kathleen. We loved it.
Yeah. Well, you were there in good spirits, I'd imagine, because a few days beforehand, you beat Clermont the Verne 2015, the top 14. And then Teddy Thomas got booked in that. He got yellow carded in that game, and since then it's been upgraded to a 4-game ban. What are your thoughts on that, or can you argue with it?
No. In that, he could easily have been read in the moment. It's just... you look at searching deeper and understanding of, it's probably off a drift defence, shall we say, in rugby, which is the action where we're looking to control the attack, as opposed to there's other times where we'll say Leinster, when they're very aggressive and they go searching the attack, looking to hit. We were doing the opposite. We were just making sure we were giving up ground to connect, to make a tackle. But unfortunately, Teddy, who's been a real bright spark for us this season, just got his timing wrong, and the level went too high. And but like, there's other actions like that in all the other 6 other top 14 games every weekend, and it's some games it's a penalty, other games it's a yellow card, other games it's a red card. But I've lost enough energy and weeks away from giving my opinions. So at the minute, I just try and concentrate on the rugby, and the discipline issues are looked after by the LNR and the referees.
And when you came back then to France, you suffered defeat to Perpignan 21-13. Were you very disappointed with the performance there?
It's a really interesting one because a lot of players, I suppose, got an opportunity, and you think it can happen by just training well, and it doesn't, because everyone knows you're better if you play 3 or 4 games on the bounce. But how can that realistically happen when you have 40 in your group? You understand? Because everyone can't play every week. Then guys are shy of minutes, guys are shy of rhythm, they're shy of tempo, of intensity, of getting better involvement, because they're in the rough and tumble of playing week after week after week. So there were some guys who hadn't played who were exceptional, and there were other guys who were probably expected a little bit more of. But I think the learning for me was that, away from home, certain times there's a policy or a framework or a game plan to be successful. I think I have to take responsibility for the players underperforming in Perpignan, because I was probably I thought it was a guide, but it was more a rigid 100% buy-in from players, which is a compliment, but made them look frozen and made them look hesitant. And when you have players like that, with the size of, I suppose, the beast in the top 14, playing at home, it's Mortal Kombat nearly first, and then it becomes a rugby game. We didn't stand off them for 40 minutes, but we didn't go after them. We were good in the second half, but they had built up. It was 18-6 at half time. I think we won, 7-3 the second half. But if we started the way we started the second half, we would have been in a better position. But in the bigger picture of things, it was. It looked like a performance with a handbrake on it, and that's never good to see out of your players because they're not expressing themselves. So. I've had to address that. And you have to understand too, I suppose, the asterisk is it was the south of France on a newly done kind of, I suppose, semi-hydro, beautiful pitch with dry ball, great conditions, no wind. And now we've kind of come back to winter rugby. Do you get me? Where at this time of year, you're probably playing winter rugby. But when you go to the south of France, especially if there's no wind or rain in Perpignan, you get brilliant conditions. So just because it was like that last Saturday means at 9 o'clock this weekend against Toulouse, it's forecast to be 50-kilometre-an-hour winds and rain. So like the idea there wouldn't be to play the same way as you did in Perpignan, but unfortunately, because of my, I suppose, negative is one way, or my restrictive game plan in the week leading into Perpignan. And in fairness to the players, they took it as kind of gospel and they applied it, which I was kind of hoping that if they saw opportunity, they would take it. But instead, we kicked the ball. But that's for me to correct.
So, how are you feeling heading into that Toulouse game, which is on tomorrow night? So, Toulouse are top of top 14. Are you confident that you can get something from this game, and by that I mean both the result and a good performance at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think with the new year, I'm probably with the realisation of where we are, and I suppose with the opponents. I mean, they're very, very good and in top confidence, so it's always a danger fixture, and we don't have much joy against the opposition we play. But I think what has happened as a result of winning Bath, Bristol, Claremont, we lose to Perpignan, so that's whatever, a roll of 3 out of 4. Sometimes you get the impression that we won 1 out of 4. Well, they've actually lost 1 out of 4. So I think the start of the new year and new opportunities and the potential to do something in the top 14 and going well in Europe before a massive game against Leinster will make us excited for tomorrow night.
You mentioned Bristol there as one of the teams that you've faced, Ronan, and obviously the big news here this week was Harry Byrne's move from Leinster over there for the next couple of months. And you would have studied him, I assume, from earlier on in the year when you played, you guys. What did you make of that move?
I suppose there's no history really, I suppose, of I suppose loan deals really or it's very infrequently done, shall we say, while it goes under the radar over here because it's, you know what I mean, there could be one a week. It's just the volume of players in France, obviously between the top 14 and Pro D, it becomes a very normal, I suppose, conversation, and looking at it, you just kind of say, you know what I mean, there's a responsibility for anyone coaching really when you have good young players. You know, and I have a similar situation to Harry Byrne in my own club, but it's a sensitive subject, obviously, because it hasn't been played out. But what you want for young number, they need to play. They need to make mistakes. I think the best example I could give the listener would be Thomas Ramos, you know, who spent, I think, 2 years on loan in Colombia in a Pro D2 team. Imagine, so everyone just assumes this guy was a born superstar, but it doesn't happen like that. People need to get game time, make mistakes in their position, and be able to be selected again. I use the example a lot to players nowadays in my own situation. It was me in Munster, because there was nowhere near like the competition there would be nowadays. And it's a horrible position for young players nowadays because the competition is so strong that there's someone there nearly as good as you or better than you to take your place. In my place, it was Killian Keane. He was 10 years older than me. Maybe not 10 years, 5 years older than me. And that was my competition, and he probably wasn't on the journey to be or to wanting to be a full-time professional. So I could make mistakes, he could support me, then I could play week after week after week. What's happening nowadays is that a guy who's 20 gets looked at and, oh no, he hasn't gone well, and we're all too quick to move on, and it becomes very, very difficult for good players. The exceptional players, I don't think, fall into that category because irrespective of their age, they look really good and they shine. But in positions like 2, 8, 10, 9, 15, you need game time and you need to play. And I know I have a 10 in my squad now who's going to be really, really good in 2 years' time, but have I the capacity for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games to have, is using the word, the team underperforming a bit harsh, or to grow him when I know I have 2 other good guys? So it's a really difficult question, I think, for the coach as well. But going back to your question, there's a connection, isn't there, between 2 Leinster players or ex-Leinster players are now featuring from Bristol. So obviously Pat Lam is there, I think, who would be a good manager to be under. So you mean now you have, is it Ed Byrne, and you had I forget his name, and he's a good player. The second row who calls the line out for Leinster, who has left from Leinster to go to Bristol. Or sorry, he's gone to Bath. Sorry, which is in the same region. We played against Bath.
Maloney.
Yes, Maloney.
Yeah, Rasmus. Yeah.
So they're whatever, 15 miles from each other. So maybe there's a little bit of a home and away from home experience going on with the 3 of them, and they can, because you need people around you too to feel good, to be able to perform. It's not just, okay, we just switch a guy in and or go, Harry, perform. You have everything here for you, but like, they're not robots. They need to kind of have their off the field matters organised. They need to understand what they want out of this 3-month period. And but essentially what was happened is that he had, at best, he was 4th in the pecking order. And I think for himself, for his own, I suppose, headspace, he needed to go challenge himself and play rugby, and he's found himself in a good club for this opportunity.
Do you think it's interesting that he's gone for the short-term loan over to Bristol rather than the Connacht contract that was kind of on the table? And he had said that he wanted to stay at Leinster. He still had a contract there, I think, until next season anyways, and instead has opted to go for the short-term one. Does that kind of show that he thinks he can challenge Sam Prendergast and all the other lads at Leinster?
The harsh reality of the situation, Kathleen, at the minute is he can't challenge unless he has minutes. He doesn't have a body of work to go on. The past has moved on so quickly, where Prendergast has stolen the march.
I mean it more in the sense that he's taken the short-term one thinking he can come back and do it, rather than taking the long-term contract with Connacht or the more permanent contract.
Yeah, from my experience, what happens in these situations is you get in place, and if you're happy and you're in a flow, the 3 months can become 12 months, can become permanent. I would think there would obviously be a discussion, because if it's working for both parties, why would you stop it after 3 months? Maybe there's a contractual, obviously, and they have to be respected. But the most important thing, I suppose, as a coach, whether it's for you or for another team, there is something inside you that wants to see the players that you coach or work under you. You want to see them flourishing, and I think the growth mindset in you is that you have to understand that you're dishonest if you're kind of going, well, I've 3 in each position and you're really important to me and I'm going to play you, where you prefer him actually to keep that relationship and let him prosper in a club where the individual is benefiting. And I think that's where the respect between coach and player becomes very evident and strong.
I don't know if you saw the Interpros over Christmas, any of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a tough time, particularly at the moment, for Jack Crowley. So the Ulster game is an interesting example. So Munster win that game. It's not a great match at all. Crowley, for me, it looked like, and geez, you tell me better by all means, but like he looked like his all-round play overall was good. But it seems like he has a case of the yips from kicks. So he's 1 from 4. 1 from 4 in that game. He got the 4th one, the conversion, which was handy enough. And he's 12 from 17 overall. So the kicking's not great. And then he doesn't play against Leinster. Where do you think his head's at?
Yeah, I get it, and that's sometimes where there's potentially flexibility needed within the arrangement of Ireland having the best model looking after their centrally contracted players. I understand maybe Jack doesn't have a central contract, but he's very much in the heart of the Irish team, because he'd be in a match day 23, that's for certain. Whether he's starting or off the bench, that's up for debate, most definitely. But where, you know, I can only speak if it was me as the player when I have had that situation. You know, I think that's where he's fallen. And it's a lot of sports people do it. You're looking for perfection in your kicking game. You know what I mean? I remember it well when the touch judges put up the flag when the ball goes over the bar. That doesn't satisfy the inner juices enough. You want to hit the middle of the middle, and you're looking for the ball to split the post exactly in the middle, and then you go tinkering and you go searching and you go experimenting, you go trying, you go looking for that perfect, I suppose, pose before you even hit the ball. So I think he needs to just probably refine and go back to what he knows worked for himself. I wouldn't have any, I suppose, questions over his temperament. I think he's very, very strong in that department. I think he probably needs to put a number of games back to back where his general kicking matches his goal kicking and vice versa. But where maybe if he had a look at his programme over Christmas, he's not in the best of form, and then he doesn't play, I suppose, the key game.
Yeah.
Is it the key game for him? Probably not in the bigger picture of things, but it's still a big game. And I just knew when I wasn't in top form, I used kind of, I suppose, try and, even though it wasn't as well, maybe it was, but I never felt that I was, because I was Irish out half, I was not allowed play in that game. I think there's always that flexibility, and I don't know how it works because I'm not in the ground now, but that I would assume that Jack Crowley is absolutely itching to put in a big performance. And if it was me, I'm sure he would have asked Mike Prendergast, can he play Leinster? He needs to play Leinster.
Yeah.
Maybe that management team have a different plan for him in terms of managing his minutes that are ahead of him. Europe coming up, Six Nations coming up, but it's very hard to sit out a huge Munster-Leinster game when you yourself hadn't, I suppose, satisfied your standards to show people what you can do.
Yeah, it felt like a glaring omission. I completely see your point, and I'm sure that Munster are managing Jack Crowley the way they see fit, and they're ignoring this one game. But that seemed primed for a good Crowley versus Prendergast contest. And of course, what transpired, and this is going on to my next question, is that Leinster have a very comfortable victory, and Prendergast plays quite well as well. Do you think that there's a big concern at the moment?
I think it was probably, with the way the game went and the performance went, it was probably a good one for Jack to miss.
Yeah, well, exactly, because I don't think many Munster fans, Ronan, were confident heading into that game, which is the worry. And I think the atmosphere kind of reflected that in Thomond as well. There was more hope than expectation. And I feel like the overall question is a big worry for the other 3 Irish provinces at the moment, just how far Leinster are ahead.
I think it's a worry for everyone in Europe. You know, that's the reality, and the fact where like you have majority of the Irish team, and then you have incredible imports. You know, so the quality of their coaching is obviously very good. The depth of their squad is very, very impressive. But you look at probably their front 5 resources, and it blows certainly all the other provincial teams away.
Ronan, best of luck tomorrow against Toulouse. Happy New Year again to you.
Happy New Year. See you. Bye, Kathleen. Cheers.
Happy
Bye-bye.
New Year.
Bye-bye.
It was such a shame. Such a shame.
Not to see him.
That Jack Crowley didn't play.
Yeah.
We were priming it for a few weeks ahead after the November series finished, and I know there's bigger fish to fry overall. For
I
Ulster,
think once he played against Ulster, everyone knew that he was going to play.
Well, I was surprised he played against Ulster, and then Billy Burns has had a very tough time, in fairness, and he gets an awful lot of criticism.
Yeah.
It seems quite personal towards him as well. I feel like he just never recovered from that Welsh moment in Cardiff. And look, there's been other examples too where he's underwhelmed at times, but he's still a decent player. He's a good kicker as well.
He had some really nice crossfield kicks in that game.
Yeah.
Some
He's a good player, like.
skewed a little bit, but
it just felt like it could have been a good statement to have a Crowley versus Prendergast. There's
do you think though?
More to rugby than tens, but still.
Yeah, I suppose it could have gone one of either way though. In that, if Crowley is in a situation at the moment where he does have a bit of the yips and he is struggling, and if he went out and it wasn't a great performance and Prendergast performed the way he did, I suppose those are the risks you take in these big games.
Yeah, but
it would have been a far more interesting matchup than Leinster versus Munster.
Definitely,
which is kind of funny that you're actually looking at individual battles at this stage rather than the overall.
Look at this from Munster perspective, and obviously I am. Is like there's no Crowley, and then Prendergast just takes the Michael out of the Munster defence for the try he scores. Like there's no bother to him. There's absolutely no bother. He sees the whole
like there was masses amounts of space. He just danced through them.
And he's confident and he's mercurial, and he's a flair 10 who has substance to him as well. And Crowley has proven that he has the personality to back himself in the big moments, but it just feels like everyone's darling at the moment is Prendergast, and rightly so.
Yeah, but I do think it's interesting this week. So I've chatted to Fiona Hayes, Alan Quinlan, and now Ronan O'Gara, and they've all said the exact same thing.
Which is?
Crowley shouldn't have played that game, that it was the right decision by Costello. And it's just interesting when you're getting these legends of the game, legends of the province. That's where they're coming from.
Exactly. Pascal Jacobs has been in touch on YouTube. It's great for Harry Byrne and for Irish rugby too. Why send him to another province only to take game time off their emerging talent? It's not like the Carberry case where he was the Irish 10 in waiting. That's a good point, actually. And to go back to the provincial discussion for a second.
You're not taking time off emerging talent,
I mean more the Carberry example is a good one. He's not the 10 in waiting
all
anymore.
All the other provinces
a year ago.
are crying out for extra options.
Well, on the other provinces, it's so Munster had a mixed Christmas. Your Connacht performed well against Leinster, and that game is overshadowed by Mac Hansen afterwards.
Yeah,
they're close enough, and Jennings got a lovely try. But then they're awful against Ulster, so bad in Connacht. What happened there?
I feel like there was an expectation going into that game that Connacht were going to win it because they were at home. It's known as a bit of a fortress. Ulster hadn't been great the last while because of that second half performance, the way they came back against Leinster. But Connacht do this all the time. Their inconsistency. They can pull out these incredible performances and just lose to Leinster. And then the next week they're like, oops, we forgot how to play rugby. So I don't know. I think Ulster had their game plan pulled together way better than Connacht did. Connacht just looked at sea. Some of their set pieces were quite good. They're quite good at the scrum. But again, they would string together an attack. So there was one, Bundyaki got the ball and it was a really good string of play and he just spilled it for no reason. It was a fine pass. it was like he just took his eye off it for a moment. And it's like those little margins of error that they just can't seem to cut out from their game.
Yeah.
And when the likes of Aki is doing it, or, you know, your big players aren't turning up in those games when you really need them to, that's when it really shows.
These handling errors are a virus in Irish rugby at the moment, both provincial and the national level.
Yeah.
For Connacht, it's funny because, like, the thing about Mac Hansen's comments after that Leinster match is when you go nuclear like that, it's great and it's a brilliant discussion point, but then you do put your team under pressure to perform. And then next time out against Ulster, they're just so lacking. I mean, Hansen himself scores a good try because his anticipation is great to get in ahead of the 3 Ulster defenders, but there's really not much else to cheer about there.
Yeah, but I also don't know how much those comments really would have like penetrated the team during the week, because I imagine it's all of them are feeling similar levels of frustration. It was just...
Do you think he had a point, Hansen?
Yeah, I think so. I think on the basis of that game in particular, yes, I think he had a point. The larger one, you could probably argue all day and not actually come to a proper conclusion on it, but you would have to say that, and we see this across all different sports. I don't think it's something that's necessarily totally rugby related, but when a team gets a certain reputation, whether it's good, bad or indifferent, it does get in the head of referees, and that's just the way it is.
Happy New Year, Colm and Kathleen from Shifty Lad. Right back at you, Shifty. Brian King, Colm is right. November is most depressing. January, we have turned the corner. Yeah,
see, I don't like summer, so that's possibly part of it as well. Like, you
don't like summer? No.
Like, I love the period from September to December. That's my favourite part of the year.
What's your beef with summer?
I'm better in cold weather than I am in hot weather.
You don't sound better in cold weather.
Yeah, I was going to say, which you wouldn't know by me like sniffing into my mic here. But
Bosine David's also been in touch on YouTube with a great comment, really. Linda Martin, to answer my question there, won the Eurovision in 1992 with the song called Why Me? Do you know that one? Do you know a fun fact about that?
Go on.
Written by Johnny Logan.
Very good.
Our own Eurovision legend. And ask Raj how the drive to the airport went. We didn't, but I assume it went well. And
seemed to have a great time in Power Sport.
Yeah. Indeed. Right, we'll move on. And do you know what we'll do now? The cash machine.
Off the Ball's cash machine.
There's a cool 75k up for grabs in the first cash machine of 2025, and what's more, we're going to have a guaranteed winner taking part. It's easy. We're about to give you an amount. You take note of it, enter, and if we call you and you give us the number, you win that cash. The cash amount, which I just said already, but I'll say it in full this time, is €75,000 exactly. Text OTB to 57557. The cost is €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You have to be over 18. You are playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Full terms are on our website at offtheball.com. Get your entry in by 3 p.m. on Friday, January 10th. That's a week from now. The cash machine will then randomly pick one entry, and it could be you we're calling. Answer within 5 rings. Tell us the prize amount, and the cash is yours. That cash amount again is €75,000 exactly. Text OTB to 57557.
Off the Ball's cash machine. Off the Ball rugby.
I picked Sam Prendergast.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. He's an international now. Sam Prendergast obviously will be delighted to be capped and elevated to that status.
Join in the obsession. Subscribe now at offtheball.com/join.
Off the Ball breakfast.
With UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
Arthur O'Dee's in the house. Arthur, good morning.
How you Colm?
Are you well?
Yeah.
You look happy to be here?
Thrilled.
Yeah. How's 2025 treating you so far?
So far, so good.
Yeah?
Yep.
Give us your highlights.
It's obviously having me back on breakfast.
Yeah. Back to work.
You
back
love the
at
darts. You love the darts.
I love the World Darts Championship. I wouldn't go as far as I love the darts. Like, I'm not week in, week out.
Did you tell me, or just said, I hope I'm not breaking confidence here, but did you say the people close to you in your life are very into it as well? Like family members? You don't think they
not well, yeah, technically, I suppose family.
Yeah.
Erica loves it.
Erica
My
is the
loves
partner
it.
of her.
Yeah, she loves it. I wouldn't watch much sport like routinely.
Is Erica, she's not really a fan of sport, she's kind of.
Wouldn't be certainly, put it this way, we'll watch this solo. We'll watch this regardless.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure
Arthur
what it
doesn't
is.
need to be in the room for this.
Do not need to be there. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah.
I think it does attract in people, though, kind of that maybe are a little bit more
It definitely does.
peripheral on their sport. 'Cause it's so easy to understand. It's like,
I don't know about that, man.
well, you know what I mean. You know
Higher
what's
level
happening.
leaving cert maths over there.
You know what's happening. It's easy to understand the rules and whatever needs to be done.
I think a lot of people have nostalgia to it as well because
You
it's
think
on
so?
over Christmas. It's one of the few sporting events that is kind of on consistently. As in, you could sit down every day / evening and watch the darts when you're not doing anything in that period. Like, it always would have been on at home over Christmas.
There's a lot of things to it. It's wonderfully produced. It's like, you know, all the different names. Like, it's one game at a time. So it's not like you're having to keep up with everything else. You know exactly.
Yeah.
You know enough of the people every
quick.
single year. It's very quick. There's people there the same people turn up year after year after year. So there's enough familiarity. Like, it's very hard to get that with other sports.
I wonder what's the element that attracts so many people? It's presumably the ambience. Like, I can't remember what happened during COVID and the restrictions there.
Yeah.
You know, but if there's no crowd there, I think you're losing more than half the audience at home, like the TV audience, I mean.
I mean,
It's a good
did they
question.
feed in audience? You know the way they did that in the Bundesliga and
They
stuff?
did it in the WWE. They actually had fans on Zoom during matches.
Yeah, see, I don't think I could get behind that.
No, I didn't either.
I think I'd prefer the fake piped-in crowd than people on
But
Zoom.
I just think it's an
Colm
event.
there on Zoom.
So
Finally got here. Finally got here.
How many people are watching darts for the purity of the sport?
I'd say it's a smaller percentage maybe than most sports. But like enough, because it is strange, because I think a lot of people, even talking to Matthew outside, like who'd be far more into it.
Even
He was saying, like, with the Premier League, it's like first few weeks, you're like, yeah, deadly, this is all every third. And then you forget about it once or twice, and then all of a sudden it's gone, you might tune back in for the final. So I presume there are people following it all year round, I guess.
There would be, yeah.
It's
Nathan now of this parish has got into it all year
in a
round.
big way. Big way.
And he'd be a good sample size of what's actually happened. Pardon this hot take, but it always amazes me how quickly their maths is, these players.
Incredible.
And like they're making split second decisions about what to go for. I know that's the most rudimentary part of darts, but it's amazing to me the decision making that they go through
Sorry,
in
I'm just
split
choking
seconds.
on Colm's hot take.
There's probably at the same time, and I think to be fair now, pre-show Kathleen made this point as well. There's like probably only so many combinations, and they've done it every single time, again and again and again and again. So they basically know that if I go, whatever, triple 20, and I hit next, I miss the 19. Right, so now I have 5 darts remain, and I know more or less what the quickest way out from here is. So they probably just know through sheer repetition. I don't even think they need to do the maths more often than not. Sometimes you see them stopping and trying to go, right, where is that? That's okay, yeah. Like more often than not, they just know, I think, what has to follow
But you know,
that.
the more interesting thing to that is the crowd, because like the minute they hit something, the crowd reacts and the crowd goes, ooh, or they go, yeah, or whatever.
Their collective ooh it's almost rehearsed. It's so good. Yeah. It's so atmospheric.
So good.
And but that's a really interesting point, right? Is that like there's no hesitation in these players. I wonder, is that because you're at the highest level of the game here? But
Well, you also have time. Like whenever the other person's throwing their
what's
darts.
the time limit? Is there a time limit on the throws?
No, but I mean, even just the time the other person's throwing their darts, you know, I have to hit whatever.
I imagine they all have a plan. They're thinking a good few throws in advance, but then you actually throw it, and if you don't get it where you want it, then you have to quickly remath it. And I think that's what fascinates me. So the second semi-final last night with Bunting and Littler is that it's just a constant flow. And like, this wasn't a great match by any means. I think the first set was good. I think it was 2-2 in the legs. I think Littler just took the first set, and the second set was really disappointing, and they had moments after that. So this wasn't a classic semi-final, but the flow for me was mesmeric. And there was one point where Littler stopped because he didn't, I think he shot outside the board, and then he looked twice about what he could do next. And that feels, that would be me, like, constantly for every shot. Like, we'd still be here now, like, and trying to work out what to do. I think that's an amazing part of it. But it's what fascinates me is, like,
You have a maximum of 3 minutes per minute.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of actually more than I thought, considering.
Yeah,
how
that's
quickly
the
they
pop
do.
song duration per throw. Yeah, that. So it could be a long time, these games, but they get
Per
into a flow.
throw?
No, per
No,
three.
per 3.
Oh,
Per 3.
right.
Yeah.
Per visit.
per throw would be absolutely insane. You could play the clock down, like we no clock to play down, but you could if you wanted to. But it's taking me aback by how it continues to grow. And I've noted Sky Sports is promo pre-Christmas for what's coming up, and they call it Dartmas, I think. And they combined the Premier League build up with darts, so they're knowing where their butter's bread here, and they're like, everyone's watching this thing.
Where
like,
their butter is bread.
Yeah, butter is bread, not the other way around. And it was contrasting in how they promoted Liverpool versus Manchester United, Sky Sports, this weekend. Do you know what they've done? Because they're like, how can we sell this? Like, this is going to be a disaster. So they have old footage of Alex Ferguson talking about how great the rivalry is. So it's already timed out for nowadays.
Yeah.
That was
I would say it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be quite entertaining for anyone
that's
who
my
isn't a
segue
United
onto
fan.
this game, like, because Arthur was telling me in the office this morning that you're fearful of this game on Sunday.
I'm not fearful. I'm just not looking forward to it. I don't think there's much excitement around it. It just feels a foregone conclusion. Like,
Did you know that last season?
yeah, I was there.
Were you?
Yeah. But even that, like, it's even that. So what did that amount to? Nothing. So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if
What's
it's
the
like,
point in it all? Is
but no,
Did you not have a little glimmer of happiness in your soul
I did
for
at the time, like
an hour afterwards?
Yeah, no, it was great. It's a great result on the day, but it was obviously misbegotten. And like even the Man City result there a few weeks ago, again, it's kind of all for naught. Like it's kind of clearly like it's like as in, oh, this will be some sort of galvanising result. Nah,
But you have to be here for the moments, Arthur. Living the moment. That was a great moment for you that day.
was
And it was
a
a
great
brief
moment.
reprieve for Manchester United Football Club.
Brief, yeah, very, very brief. All too brief.
And 2 seasons ago, this was the game that will haunt Manchester United fans for many years to come, was the 7-0 reverse at Anfield, which came a week after winning the League Cup final against Newcastle, when that was actually a really good time for Eric Ten Hag.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to know. Like anything could happen. Like it's not. I think that do they play again? Is there another match on the Thursday, or is that stretched out a bit more? Is the FA Cup the match after that?
FA Cup is the next one.
Yeah, it's FA Cup next weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So it's
yeah,
Arsenal next.
yeah. I don't know. Like it's not. It doesn't really. It's not really an important game in terms of Man United season. Like it makes no difference whatsoever.
It is really the equivalent of Liverpool playing a mid-table side now, or upper lower table. So that's really what this is like. I mean, it's not the great rivalry of Manchester United. This should be a handy win for Liverpool. This should be about 2-0, 3-1 job
Yeah.
and out the gap. No
Well,
big
like,
celebration.
if you look at that, was the same as Arsenal when they played United like a couple of years ago, when they were still a good team and Arsenal were on the down, and it was, you were going into every single game like this used to be, you know, the great Wenger and Ferguson battles that happened, and it just wasn't that anymore. But like things can turn around
I
relatively
remember that. They
quickly.
tried desperately to keep that going in the late 2000s into
Yeah,
the
it
early
didn't
2010s.
really work all
And the
that well.
A2 kind of killed that off.
Just
whatever.
patting them on the head.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was the worst. That better be ignored. But this game, it brings back, like, it's my favourite game, by the way. Liverpool versus Manchester United at Anfield is my favourite match.
I feel like I ask you this every year, but why?
There's mixed emotions to it, right? So it's like John O'Shea scores the winner in 2007 at Anfield, and United go on to win the league, their first league in 4 years. And there's a Carlos Tevez winner at one point as well, and then Diego Forlan scores twice at Anfield, and like this is when he was kindly described as a cult hero, be like Divock Origi basically. But then there's other moments like Steven Gerrard's thunder bastard into the top left corner against Fabian Barthez. There are games where Liverpool's getting the better of United, but like they're still really enjoyable. But for me, my favourite one of all is actually 30 years old tomorrow, which is Liverpool 3, Manchester United 3 on the 4th of January 1994, where United race into a 3-0 lead. One of the goals is a stupendous free kick by Cork's own Dennis Irwin. Like, why he was taking off free kicks for the marketing machine that David Beckham was, I'll never understand it. Like, but Irwin was perfect on free kicks and they took him off it. Unbelievable. And then Liverpool came back thanks to Nigel Clough, who was one of his brief good moments in Liverpool jersey, and Neil Ruddock, Razor, with his new book out, equalises. There's red nets, beautiful atmosphere. It's a night game. Andy Gray and Martin Tyler on form. It's the pinnacle of Premier League. If we got anything like that this Sunday, it would be magical.
Yeah.
Absolutely magical.
Only a few elements missing, but
Yeah, we can think back to it. I was actually on to John Brewin, who'll be on with us in a few minutes. And he was at that, or he was watching that game somewhere memorable. So we'll talk to him about that. Plus, probably this story as well on the back of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Rashford snubs £35 million Saudi deal. United forward wants to fight for his place in England's squad. He's no longer in that, and he wants to stay in a competitive league in Purportedly, there's been 3 separate offers from Saudi.
3 different clubs. Yeah.
Yeah, £35 million a year. As a
What do you think about the potential swap for Osimhen?
Oh yeah, take that all day.
Yeah.
I mean, like Rashford needs to go. He needs to leave.
Oh, I know Rashford needs to go, but
Take
would
anyone.
you be happy swapping him for Osimhen? And that was rather than getting the money. And
I mean,
what money he's going to accumulate? And yeah, Osman's unbelievable.
He's unbelievable.
Like Osman's wasting his time at Galatasaray. He's only there to wait around till he gets a move that fits his talent.
Well, that'd be an amazing piece of business.
Oh yeah, I take anyone, Kathleen. I take Liam Delap there. Like seriously, like he needs to go. They're not going to get any substantial money for Rashford.
I don't think there's any question about whether he's going to go at this stage. He said he wants to go. The club want him gone. He's not playing.
But your question was a straight swap deal with no money exchanged, but you get Osimhen instead, is it?
I think that's what was on the table. Yeah.
I don't know if Rashford will go to Galatasaray. That's the only thing.
No, he's owned by
he got
Napoli.
to Napoli.
Oh, now he's owned by Napoli. Yeah, that would be a good move. In fairness,
I think I don't know if they'll pay him that kind of money though. I think that's part of the problem with Osimhen. Is your man De Laurentiis or whoever who owns Napoli? Like I don't think they're not paying out those kind of wages.
No.
But it's like we said yesterday that United are probably going to get stuck in this thing where they end up paying some wages for a while.
I can go and link up with Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmore.
I mean, the only redeeming factor in Marcus Rashford's career at the moment is that he's not been involved in the most current crisis, Manchester United. I mean, they were abysmal to say the least the other day against Newcastle. That first half hour that was, I think, actually the low point in the last 11 and a half years, which is saying something.
Well, what are you thinking of the overall situation? Like, it's got worse.
It has, yeah.
Since
I saw you text that the other day. Hard to disagree with you.
Amarim's come in. Like, it's got worse. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you make of that? What's your assessment of that?
You see, it's all about the character of the person in charge is such an important factor. And I don't even know if that's a good or a bad thing. It can feel quite shallow. But Amarim carries himself with the confidence of a person who sees the future and thinks, it'll work out, don't worry about it. And he's already coming out and saying, like, if I don't think I'm right for this job, I'll walk away. So he's already covering himself there. But I think what he's doing is, and he said this from day one, so it's not really, like the magnitude of these defeats is surprising, but the general results aren't, because as soon as he had the microphone put in front of him, he said, this is going to be very tough. And he's repeatedly said that. So he's told everyone. Now, I think it's hilarious that he's saying out loud, like, my players are terrible. They're so bad. Yeah. Like, and then he's going in and trying to motivate them. Like, how is he going to motivate them at Anfield when he's telling, like, this shower, like, look what I'm left with. Like, he's laughing at them. So I think he wants to get through the season, avoid relegation, and I'm not even joking when I say that, like, just stay out of the bottom three. They'll pick up a result here and there. Like, the Man City game was mental. They beat Everton 4-0. That type of a thing where they'll probably win one in every 4 games. He'll get to the summer, and I imagine he'll try and shaft a load of them. And he's just looking at them now thinking, I'm not having you. You can't play. What was I doing picking Eriksen and Casemiro in midfield? And he's making all these decisions from. But it's such a brutal bit of learning on the job because everybody's seeing what's happening in front of them. This isn't being done behind closed doors. Everyone's laughing at them, but they don't feel like they're laughing at him. I think somehow he's kind of getting away with this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I also think, is that not the sign of a good manager as well, that is coming in and speaking openly about the players?
I think he's very politically clever. I don't know if he's going to be a good manager for Man United yet. I think out of all the appointments since Alex Ferguson, it's the one I'm happiest with. Like I was genuinely unsure about Ten Hag. Pochettino was the other one who was up for it at the time, and I would have preferred Pochettino. Van Gaal, I thought he's a bit past it. I hated the Mourinho thing just from start to finish. Even though they won a few trophies, came second in the league, I hated that. Just wanted him gone. And then Moyes was a disaster waiting to happen. So it feels like the most promising. The guy's about to turn 40. He's a young guy, he's full of energy. He clearly is a very good manager from what we've seen. But time will tell if he's a good manager for Man United. It actually reminds me of your take on Ange Postecoglou in Tottenham. I would say it's a cultural problem at the club. You'd think, no, they have a clown in charge. I don't think. I know that's what he said on the record. But
sounds like a very Arthur thing to call someone a clown.
Check the record.
I don't know if this Manchester United squad is unmanageable.
I think the summer is going to be the deciding thing. I don't think it's going to be.
They don't have any money. That's the problem. They have to get rid of a lot of players.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's what's going to be deciding. It's what they do in the next 6 months and what they're able to do with the money that they do have.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he has to go out and do some like major business and spend hundreds of millions of pounds or whatever. He could be very smart. Like, as you say, if it was that Rashford swap deal, like if they could make something like that work, they're not spending as much money.
It'd be amazing. It'd be an
That would be
amazing
great.
scenario.
If they could make it work.
Wouldn't believe the luck.
Who would you keep?
It's a good question. Like if you're thinking practically about it, like if you throw all rules out the window and you can just be, it doesn't matter, or like
We don't
if
know
you're thinking so, I
Diallo's
find
getting a new contract, isn't he?
Who?
Diallo?
yeah, I think his is up at the end.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In June.
I don't like realistically. If you're like, I don't have much problem with Onana really. I think he's fine for the time being. I don't like. It's not. I think that like principally the only thing I'd want is someone far better in midfield.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you probably I quite like hAoine, so I see the need for someone else though as well. But geez, they certainly need a wing back, a left wing back. Like, there's a lot of guys who'd move on, but like it's not a case of replace them with who. Like it's not.
Who will take them as well?
Well, who'll take them? It's like gone are the days you're just going to ship them off to Everton and Aston Villa. But it's just who you bringing in. Like it's a weird thing where it's like I don't think Victor Lindelof. You know, I know he came off injured, or whatever, not too long ago. And you're like, I don't probably think he has much of a future at the club, but I don't know who the replacement for him is. Who you replace? It's very hard to assemble squad players like that unless you kind of build from within. And I don't know what the academy products and stuff are looking like. I'm not sure. So that's the hard part. I don't know, like because if you replace, like, do you keep Harry Maguire now that he's kind of showing some signs of life?
No.
But then if you sell him off, who do you replace him with? I
don't think they need to get anybody in. They have about 8 centre halves. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, they're not playing terribly well. It's like you know, I like
Who's playing
Delict.
well?
I like Delict. I think
Yeah?
yeah. I think Mazraoui's been a good signing.
He's all right, yeah.
I think Ugarte will function in a more functional midfield.
You're holding on to Bruno Fernandes, are you?
If the right money was there.
Would you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think I find him problematic. He's 5 years at the club actually this month.
Why problematic?
I just,
He has a bit of an attitude issue.
I think he's a bit of a liability. At
But I
Leinster.
think-
But I totally acknowledge the fact that he's been United's best player for the last 5 years, which is saying something. Like,
But that's the thing, I think he's just frustrated. I think if you actually got the team purring a little bit,
yeah, maybe.
he would go back to being a bit happier and his form would be a bit better.
And not having him as a captain, just can't. It's that guy. I
Who
don't
would you
think-
put as
don't think he's a
captain then?
leader. Well,
Because you'd have to have someone that's there already. You couldn't really bring someone in.
yeah, who'd be the captain? I don't know.
No,
I honestly don't know. But it doesn't mean that you should still pick Fernandes. Like, you know, he's a big character. I'm not saying he's not. Like,
Yeah.
and he's their best player. But I'd be with Arthur actually if the money came along. I'd take it.
it's just I don't know where he fits. He's not.
That's the other problem, isn't it?
He doesn't really can't really play in the middle too.
No.
He's not really good out on either of the wings.
I know, yeah, if he's playing... that's what I said from day one, but I was thinking... well, a lot of people are saying, they'll fit him in all right.
Yeah.
He's so technical and all that. It's a very good question, actually. If anyone has any suggestions, who should the Manchester United captain be, if you agree with me that it shouldn't be Bruno
I
Fernandes?
tell you what, it's one of those things that if he was a few years older and you could just have him as a squad player, where
Yeah.
like you're going wherever, Southampton away, and you just need to control the game a little bit. But I don't think he's... look, there's too many problems. You could fucking be here all day doing this.
Rangers 3, Celtic 0 in yesterday's Old Firm front page of the Irish Examiner sports section today. 3 and easy. Celtic failed to fire as Rangers earn rare Old Firm wins. So in the grand scheme of things, this isn't too problematic for Celtic. They're absolutely flying it in the Scottish Premiership. Rangers are not. Brendan Rodgers' record in the Old Firms is sensational. He had won 16 of the 20 heading into yesterday's game, the most of any Celtic manager. And Rangers only won one of the last 14 Old Firms, last of which was May 2023 when the league had already been won. So the last one they won of note was in 2021 when Stephen Gerrard was there.
Clement has
Gerrard has done
lost all 6 before yesterday.
Yeah.
That he's been manager.
They had 26 shots that they faced yesterday. So they were just appalling from start to finish. And unfortunately, from the Irish perspective, Liam Scales is very culpable for the first goal. Not sure it's going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but it was a horrendous day at the office. They actually had a really good chance to go ahead at 0-0 Celtic. And then Rio Hatate had a chance before half time. I don't think they had a single shot in target in the second half. Celtic was grim viewing, but in the end of the day, they're flying it in the league. Keane says time with O'Neill was highlight of his career. Did you see this? Martin O'Neill was on the latest episode of Stick to Football. Quite a good guest, actually. And I don't know if they just got all chummy and pally and nostalgic together. But Roy said being the assistant manager with Ireland at Euro 2016 was the highlight of his entire career.
His entire managerial career, or his
Everything.
playing career as well?
Because Martin O'Neill was chuffed with that. He was like, "Oh, considering all you've won," and like Martin O'Neill,
Definitely just got a bit emotional.
Martin O'Neill is a sarcastic man. He's quite cynical. It is borderline patronising at times, but he was
I wouldn't even
sincere.
say borderline.
he was sincere in that moment. But I don't know if either of you saw this, but he calls out, without calling his name, Tony O'Donoghue, from the treatment he got from the Irish media at the end of his time with Ireland, and he was on about the Denmark playoff. And he said, so the rest of the panel, other than Roy, don't really know about what this treatment was. And he said that the reporter after a Denmark game said to me, is that not a sackable offence? Which was the 5-1 reverse against Denmark. And
At home.
I think our own Richie looked it up ahead of the newsround last night, and Tony O'Donoghue does not say that.
No.
He's just saying, like, that's a very difficult result to justify, basically. And how do you think about that? But my abiding memory of O'Neill in charge of Ireland was he was very snippy, extremely snippy with the Irish media.
Oh yeah, but he still is. Like, he's in the papers every couple of months. He pops up and is just snippy
There's a
about
kind
that
of-
time and is snippy about the Irish media.
Yeah, there's a bitterness to him, isn't
Oh,
there?
completely.
I used to love him.
Even when he's on with some of the media, like doing
Yeah.
games or whatever,
Now-
he's basically sniping at people.
It's a very entertaining listen, the whole pack. It really is. But I remember him as Celtic manager, and I thought, like, he was the opposite. He was one of the most positive managers in football. And same before that with Leicester City. I was like, this guy's great. Like, he's a ball of energy. You'd love to play for him. I'd say, and even when Aston Villa and Ashley Young scores a great goal at Goodison Park to win a game at Everton, he's grabbing him. He's like, you're a genius. You're a genius. And somewhere along the way, he kind of seemed to fall out of love with the game. And what's left is this kind of bitter person who, to be fair to him, he's in his early 70s. He looks phenomenal.
He does,
He's not wearing it badly.
I did not
but
realise he was that
there's a bitterness to him, but it's a very good listen, and there's clearly a very obvious rapport between Keane.
It is
and O'Neill.
interesting though, because I've never understood why he lent in so much to that football man type thing, where it's just everything's against you. Everyone is.
What's it about,
It's
like?
just like you don't need to do this at all.
What's it about?
I never got it. Like, he's such a clearly kind of intelligent, articulate fella, and it's just like, you don't need to go down this path. It's like, you don't need to be doing like the Sam Allardyce type thing.
Yeah.
Of kind of everyone's
that's it, like-
disrespecting me. You've had an amazing career.
And I know there's a lot of like serial winners in sport. They're often unhappy and they remember the bad times. But like, O'Neill has nothing to be bitter about. Like, wins the European Cup, Nottingham Forest as a player, play a central role in the second final. So has a brilliant career on the pitch. And then as a manager, like, does phenomenal stuff with Celtic. Has a great time of it with Leicester before that. Aston Villa afterwards. It's kind of Sunderland onwards goes a bit ropey. But like, you could just say, all right, look, it went
But
away
I think
from there.
because the way he is so bitter on television and stuff, it almost makes people not want to appreciate his career here or
Yeah.
appreciate what he did actually achieve.
I think so. We'll go to John Brewin now in just a moment. Just one last thing here before we do so. Misfiring hammers hunt Evan. This is in the back of Mirror Sport. West Ham have been linked with a loan move for Ireland striker Evan Ferguson. You have a very interesting take on Ferguson, I find, is that you're... I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I will. You find him, you're unconvinced by him. You don't think he necessarily Premier League quality? We haven't seen enough of him? Are we biased towards
No, I'm not. It's not unconvinced by his potential, but I don't think it necessarily amounts to anything finite in terms of like what he necessarily like. I know this thing from Ger and his thing, and I don't know, whatever. I'll take him at his word with it.
Yeah.
But the type of thing of saying, well, Arsenal should go get him or Spurs should go get him, and thing is like, he wouldn't even be on the radar for that type of thing. And like, I think there's obviously an Irish bias towards it, but like, it's not, when you look at the pathway of any,
He'd make it to Spurs at this stage.
would not a hope in hell would he start in Spurs. Not a hope in hell. He wouldn't.
No, as in like he could develop there into a first team player. I don't think he'd get in at Arsenal in the next like 5 years unless he does something incredible. But
Jeez, I'd have Dominic Solanke way ahead of Ferguson.
like, it'd be light years ahead. Like, it's not even close. Like, because I just think it's like, I think we're far too quick to kind of remember. It's like selective memory of just, you remember those high points and you
We've
kind of
got so
forget
few.
everything else in between
Yeah.
that comes. And it's like, there are amazing high points. That hat-trick against Newcastle was
I'm
amazing.
thinking when you're talking there.
And it clearly, to do that even once at that level suggests you have a serious ability about you. But like, to repeat it or even repeat anything close to it.
Yeah.
And it's just when you think, like, if you think of the best, say, player of his ilk that's played in England in the last 10, 15 years, probably Harry Kane, of that sort.
Yeah.
Roughly that sort of player. And like, his thing is completely, he's on loan non-stop, in and out. And then kind of almost, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I almost feel when he came through at Spurs, it was almost like a little bit reluctantly.
Well, they were unconvinced by him.
It was like, this guy, yeah, maybe he'll make it. And like now he's got every record going, like, or whatever.
I'd say as deep into about 2017-18, a lot of people involved with Spurs thought he was on an extended purple patch.
Yeah.
Harry Kane, that he didn't have actually necessary quality.
Yeah.
But clearly he did, and he's, one of the finest strikers. I'd see an interesting point for sure. I know we have to move on now, but the Spurs shout, I'd love to see it, but I just doubt it.
Yeah, no, I don't think he would go in and like start with the first team at all. But I'm like, that's the sort of place that I could see him getting like cup time.
Yeah, but what's the difference in Brighton and Spurs situation from then, That's what I mean. Like, it's the same at Brighton. He can't get in ahead of any of the lads. Like, so he's not going to hit Joe Pedro, Karen Matoma, Danny Welbeck. It's very Adingra. I know they're all deeper lads, but like the system that Hurtsler plays, it's very difficult to see Ferguson play. He's not as mobile as the rest of them.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a disaster, by the way, if he goes to West Ham.
Do you?
That'd be an absolute disaster.
Himself and Fulcrook up front.
Stay well away.
Do you know what I mean? All right, start your day with Brayburn Coffee's creamy gluten-free oat coffee at Applegreen, served hot nationwide or iced in selected locations. It's the perfect oat, amazingly easy companion for your mornings. That's a good sentence. Now we're going to be talking football with John Brewin, as I just mentioned. But first, here's Andy Mitten of United We Stand talking about the chaos that is Manchester United FC.
Fans don't really want to hear this because they want shiny new things all the time. But Manchester United have basically run out of money. So a lot of this is on the Glazers. A lot of it is on recruitment under the Glazers and players who were signed for fortunes who were not successful. United is still paying off these transfers. Big name. People like Alexis Sanchez, who came to a fanfare, failed and left. Times that by 15 or 20, because that's how many of them there have been. So fans don't really want to hear this because they want shiny new things all the time. But Manchester United have basically run out of money. And something had to change, and it is changing. And these decisions are biting really hard. I know lots of people on a personal level who've lost a job. Who've done nothing wrong but work hard. Working class Mancunians who love Manchester United, they've lost a job. Bang, you're out of work. And it's not their fault Alexis Sanchez wasn't a success. You mentioned the ticket prices. That did look out of touch. £66 for a kid. And it's a very small percentage of tickets.
3%.
But what worries me more is what's coming.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me more. Dynamic pricing. I've seen on pre-season tours how much has been charged for pre-season friendlies, including the game in Dublin, for example. It's sold out straight away. There's a different set of rules in Manchester where the fans are going 35 times per season just to home games as well.
John Brewin's in the virtual house. John, good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
There have been near countless calamities concerning Manchester United since Alex Ferguson retired in 2013. But is the first half an hour the other day against Newcastle United the biggest one of them all?
Oh, that's a big call. There's been a lot of I mean, Manchester United over the last decade are the crisis club, aren't they? It used to be a group of them. And some of them still embrace this, but I mean, there was a point it was like Manchester City, the old Manchester City, Everton, West Ham, Newcastle. There'd always be some sort of comedy or farce going on there. And Manchester United have joined that group and now superseded a lot of them for ridiculous stories of players going AWOL and financial problems, which, as Andy speaks there, are what are cutting into them at the moment. Chaos, uncontrolled chaos, but poor ownership. And what you've got at the moment is they've got a new manager. They've got a new manager who I wrote a piece for The Guardian the other day, which was documenting their the 12 months of 2024, and quite an interesting point that Amorim didn't actually want to take the job until this summer.
Right.
Now, this is a guy who obviously has his plans in place, likes to have time on the training ground, keeps saying that he's only had a few hours on the training ground with his players. They may well have parachuted in the wrong man at the wrong time. And let's just say, that's not the first time that's happened in the last 10 years at Manchester United.
I like one of the most kind of infuriating aspects from the Manchester United perspective, I think, from the outside looking in, is, Sean, why do they wait for, the bones of 6 months to sack Eric Ten Hag. Why didn't they just say, thanks so much for the FA Cup final win against Manchester City. Now let's move on to a new era. Let's bring Amorim in the summer, give him a full pre-season, and he can plan from there. It all just felt incredibly inevitable. And then, like you say, Amorim takes a job and he doesn't really want to, and now we're left with this unmitigated mess.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about that is that they're just going to have to stay patient. The probably one thing that whoever is in charge at Man United, there's a lot of people in charge at Man United. If you watch that row of heads in the executive class seats, someone needs to tell Amorim, stop talking about relegation. Like, don't do that. I was actually at the Ipswich game the other night and was sat there doing my rewrite of a piece and. Heard him mention relegation on the TV in the press room, and I thought, that is a bad move, because that's back page instantly, isn't it? It's back page headlines. And as little as people care for what goes on the back page these days, it still has that effect, still has that ripple in the industry, still has us talking about it. But, I mean, listen, you can go over old ground with the Ten Hag thing. It was a mistake from the start. It would have been ideal to just say goodbye. Well done for the FA Cup. Well done for the trophies you won the previous season. See ya. And thank you. Yeah. And that would have been it. And the thing is, as I said during that review, Ten Hag himself didn't even think he was going to be kept on. He was on holiday and someone knocked on the door and said, hey, right, should we get this negotiation? And he's like, oh, what? Okay, fine. So Ten Hag was willing to go, and I'm sure he's very happy now he's not at Manchester United.
Yeah,
and that is the issue as well. I mean, Andy talked there about people that he knew that had left the club. I too have a few friends, people that I know who work there. They were delighted to get out of there, which is sad because it's a place they'd enjoyed working there for a long, long time. The atmosphere had changed. Now, the atmosphere changed possibly, almost certainly, because of Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in. And Ratcliffe is taking the heat for making those decisions. The decisions come because the club has failed in the last few years. People have to take... listen, if you work for a company that's floated on the New York Stock Exchange and the analysts spot that the club or business is going down, they like activities to take place. They like sackings. That shows the people on Wall Street or whatever that something's happening. So Big Sir Jim took those steps, and it has stripped a lot of the community out of the club. Will it make them a more professional outfit? Well, that may take a while. In the meantime, you've got a PR disaster on your hands because of those stories coming out. It's not stopped. I see one thing. It's not stopped the leaks coming out of Manchester United, has it?
No.
Because I mean, you had the story just over Christmas of, and this is the one that for me, I thought this is a misjudgment. Whoever's made this, it's the Ex-Players Association. And the grant given by Man United was either reduced or cut. There was a point where they didn't receive the cheque they expect to receive. Now, a lot of these players will have played for Man United for like 125 quid a week, 100 quid a week years ago. Some of them, you meet an old footballer, most of the time you're meeting someone with a limp, aren't you? Because they put the body on the line. And they didn't earn the money that, a Manchester United player, even a first-year professional will earn now. And then to cut the money these people are getting, these people that the fans idolised, to do that. I'm not talking about Alex Ferguson's $2 million a year. I think everyone agrees. Hey, I think you've had your money, Alex.
Yeah.
I think even he might have agreed with that. Oh, he did go to Aberdeen that weekend, didn't he? So maybe he didn't. But there's certain things that look sensible. That's a bad PR move.
Yeah.
And the Ratcliffe thing. Jim Ratcliffe is a guy that's been used to making these cuts. But he's not been used to doing it so publicly. And the thing about Manchester United is, it's the most famous club in football. Let's say that. And the minute you do anything like that, it's front page, it's back page news. And I don't think he was quite ready for that.
No. I think Dennis Irwin's part had ex-player group as well. Actually, there's a few names coming out. about it. Like the one thing that staff at the club said about the Glazers, well, at least they looked after people's families during Christmas.
Yeah.
So that, that's why the morale is so low. And then on the pitch with Ruben Amorim, it does feel worse now than it was at the start of the season even. Do you think there's any part of Amorim that regrets taking this job, regardless of doing it mid-season, but just regrets it wholesale? Because like you said, he's coming out and so publicly saying, like, this is going to be very tough for a long time. Basically, the players are no good, but I'm going to try and motivate them for Anfield on Sunday.
I think it's so. If you are, I suppose it's a test of his mettle, isn't it? Because if you become the manager of Manchester United, and we've seen several big managers fade in the wake of Manchester United, you've got to back yourself. If Amorim's not backing himself at this point, then the likes of Richard Keys or whatever are probably right. It's time to go already. But I don't see that just yet. This is a guy who has a lot of self-belief. You might say that his repeated belief in this 3-4 system that does not simply fit English football shows is either crazy or he is a very self-possessed person that's determined to see it through. We will see which way that goes. It's very difficult. And the one thing is you do wonder, okay, he's trying to play this system. Why can't the players fit into that system? What is it with the players at Manchester United? They arrive at this club as good players and then disappear. I watch Manchester United now from a distance most of the time, and there's a couple of players that I don't actually recognise the faces. And that's weird, isn't it? I've followed Manchester United for 40 years, but it's almost like their personalities are wiped by joining Manchester United. Their facade is wiped by just joining this amorphous mess of, your De Ligt and your Ugartes. I'm not sure which one is which, because they've all just dropped into this morass of mediocrity. And, if you flick back over that 10 years of Manchester United, 11 years or whatever since Alex Ferguson, 12 years, we're in 2025. There's a lot of lost souls there at the club that people have bought. Why have so few players come through and shown themselves to be worthy of the red shirt? I mean, you've got a player like Bruno Fernandes, a player that I'm not sure in that golden era would have been a particularly high-grade player. But you can't really argue with his performances compared to just about everybody else that he's playing with. Someone like Marcus Rashford, this player that's discussed all the time, he has hit heights that Man United players of his era have not hit. That's possibly why it's such a disappointment he's hit skids now. But there are so few players that you come through and think, who's stood up for the shirt? Because, even before Ferguson, you had players that embodied Manchester United. Andy Mitten will know, your Martin Buchans, your Brian Robsons. You've got players that stood out in the 70s when it was a dark time for Man United, that they didn't win trophies, they got relegated. But you had your Gordon Hill, your Steve Coppells, people that lifted the Stretford end and that people around the country would go and watch because they were exciting to watch. One of the other things about Man United is they used to be known for playing exciting off-the-cuff football. That was why people, grounds in London would fill because Man United would come into town. They don't now because it's, what's Man United's style of football? Well, we've got this attempt at 3-4-3. Ten Hag, well, we never got to the bottom of what he was trying to do there. And you've just got a series of Man United players who've just lost it. I mean, Jose Mourinho may try and, back announce his greatness as a Man United manager, but they were still terrible to watch, whatever he might say. And it was at a point when I think the Premier League was not the strongest when you consider it was around the time Leicester were champions, as great an achievement as that was. But actually, I heard a comparison recently, which was that Leicester as champions, perhaps the only thing more surprising than that in the Premier League era would be Man United getting relegated. You know, that would complete the decline. I'm not saying it's possible. I've seen quite a lot of the clubs low down in the league. They are worse than Manchester United, not by a lot, but the margin for error is still quite big. They could just about get away with it. But as we were talking about, if Amorim doesn't turn it around and sort it out soon, starting with Liverpool, then and he's already talking about relegation, then we're veering into danger signs already. And it being Manchester United, the back pages aren't about Liverpool running away with the league. They aren't even about Manchester City's wobbles. They aren't even about Manchester City's 115 charges. Man United in crisis. That one always wins, doesn't it, as a market leader?
Do you think Amorim course corrected a little bit too much when he came in? Because there was all the talk about Ten Hag when he first started, and he didn't expect the media spectacle. And as you were saying, those back pages to be focused on United and what they're going through rather than Liverpool's great season, what Forest are doing, whatever it might be. And he's almost tried to take that limelight and put it not on himself, but put it on the team and say, these players are terrible, we're potentially going to get relegated, and that becomes a story. And then the focus is somewhat different rather than it being directly on him and directly on his style of football and the style he's trying to implement.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it's also a risky point of view to turn around and say all these players are not good enough for what I want to do, considering you've got half a season to do it. And with PSR regulations being as they are, as much money as Jim Ratcliffe's got, he can't reach into his pocket and buy, £200 million players. He said he's not going to do that. They've also shown that doing that doesn't really make any difference. So what you've got is Amorim, and what the ideal situation is that you have these players that are going to try and prove themselves to Amorim to be part of the rebuild. The probable situation is that a few of them are thinking, right, I'm on the way out anyway. The word from within the club is that a lot of the directors they're going to back Amorim as far as they can because it's the players that they want to get rid of. The issues of that, of course, is getting rid of dud players is very difficult in this era of PSR. Though actually, it's funny, you mentioned Nottingham Forest, and they're the beneficiaries of a lot of Chelsea players within their squad because Chelsea decided to offload them. They've got Alanga, a Man United player, who actually did show some promise and then was binned in favour of Anthony. I mean, that's a disastrous deal, isn't it? So it can be done. I mean, clubs like Forest are showing. I mean, Forest went close to their PSR limit famously. They went over and took a points deduction. And now where they are, but they're under the careful, calm managership of Nuno, who is a Portuguese manager who's a little bit different to Amorim, and also it's Nottingham Forest. If Nottingham Forest lose a couple of games, no one's going to notice that much because it's like, oh, they're still having a good season. Manchester United lose a game every time, it's a crisis, especially when it starts to reach this almost terminal velocity that they're in at the moment. All he's got to do is win at Anfield. I mean, that's, get that done, job done. Everyone's happy. And the funny thing is, he did pull off that win against Manchester City, didn't he? And it's 3-4 weeks ago.
But that doesn't feel like that meant all that. Like, it did at the time, but it feels like nothing now. So even if he pulls it off against Liverpool at the weekend, how long is that actually going to stay in the consciousness of United fans or even football fans in general if the results on the other side aren't great? If they lose to Arsenal in the FA Cup, and then it's who's next?
They've got Arsenal in the FA Cup, so just the small man.
I think the run after that, though, it's not like big name teams from what I remember.
Yeah, Southampton and Brighton.
That was it. Yeah,
Brighton are involved, I think, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, Southampton 6 points. Can we say that at this point?
Well, someone in the comments has said that, John, that Ipswich in February is a 6-pointer now.
It's a bit. I mean, I was at Ipswich the other night. Good team. Liam Delap against those AI voids of Man United's defence. You've got you'd quite fancy the chances, really, wouldn't you? I mean, I mean, as I said, I've watched Man United for a long time, and this is as bad as it's got, really. Even during that 10, 11 years. I mean, the Moyes season now seems like some, you know, if not heavenly, but, you know, at least purgatorial. You know, this is United in hell. It's funny, but people. I mean, I was an advocate of Louis van Gaal. The football was not great, but it felt like he was going in a certain direction, and he was removed of his job. And I think since then it's sort of gone. You've had Mourinho, you've had Solskjaer, and you've had second place finishes, but it's never quite looked like the development was going anywhere. It always felt like everything was temporary. Any success that was had was temporary. And then what happens eventually is you bottom out and you're left with a group of players who are still put together by 6 or 7 different managers. And then when you finally get a manager that you decide, I mean, this is the plan, that, hey, we're going to build this around a young manager, the money's gone. Because the Glazers, for all their benevolence to the staff, it's not really their money that they're spending, of course. It doesn't matter to them. They've been taking their own money out all the time. The club's finances are a mess. It's not really a problem for them. Big Jim Ratcliffe's just paid them, you know, $1.5 billion for his share. They're sat okay, and the club's in a mess, and they've got to deal themselves out by transfers. The one thing that they've shown over the decade that they can't actually do. So it's a sort of Gordian knot of that they can't pull themselves out of. And I'll tell you one thing, actually, you know, the major change that Jim Ratcliffe's made in terms of public facing is that group of execs. And I do think this is a big test of this growing cult that you've got in football of the sporting directors, of these people that you see whispering in the ear of owners. Like, how successful are these people actually in doing the job compared to the old style manager like Ferguson, like Wenger, you know, like even like your Sam Allardyces or whatever, that run a club top to bottom, that know how everything's going? Because it feels to me that having those so many people doing different jobs can mean that certain fiefdoms are formed by certain executives, and the manager, who should remain the most important person at the club because he's the person managing the team that goes out to play every week, doesn't feel as important as he should do. And it's happened a lot in Manchester United's history that the manager eventually departs because they're left isolated by the hierarchy at the club. Going back to the Busby days when he was still in situ, where, you know, Tommy Docherty left after a personal affair. Dave Sexton, you know, became a stranger. Ron Atkinson always said that he never felt like he fitted in with the people in the executive class. And then what you need is someone to come and just take the club and make them their own. Look at Pep Guardiola. You've got all that stuff at Manchester City, but the club is about Pep, isn't it? It's built in his image. Manchester United need to do that. Is Amorim a guy to build a club's image around? We're going to find out. But they almost need this strong man, this heroic figure, a Busby, a Ferguson, to pull them together. I think Jim Ratcliffe thought that he might be that person, but you reckon he doubts that now?
Possibly,
he ought to.
Yeah, possibly.
It feels so soon.
It does, yeah, it does. We don't know. It's more about the club than Amorim at the moment. It feels, but I do think this is the worst it's been since Ferguson called it a day. Because I think what the worst thing about Manchester United the last decade is they're in a constant state of purgatory, because it's never gotten that catastrophically bad as now. Because if you look at it, like, Moyes won the Community Shield in his first game, for example, so there's the trophy. Who was up next? There was Van Gaal finishes with the FA Cup, and they're a respectable Premier League outfit during his time. Mourinho wins the Europa League, the League Cup, finishes second in his second season. Solskjaer had some great moments for the first 3 months. I mean, if he could take that back, he probably would have left then as interim manager and gone on to forge his own managerial career. And he gets to the Europa League final, they lose on penalties to Villarreal. Ten Hag wins the League Cup and the FA Cup. So there are moments, but now we're at a stage where United lose handsomely at home to Bournemouth, and match of the day are just like, yeah, on to the next game. This is no surprise at all. Absolutely no surprise. And that's why I picked out the Newcastle game the other day, John, is that for the first half an hour, Newcastle United could do whatever the hell they wanted to this United side.
But when United won the FA Cup under Ten Hag, they were at a similar sort of stage.
Like, it came out of nowhere. Oh, no.
Like I'm saying, you can't really judge from September to now, or like not even September, since Amarin came in.
No, but they're racking up. Kathleen, they're racking up the defeats here, like they're in a habit of it, like without scoring. You know, that's the look. My point in all this,
my point is more that they could do a run somewhere.
They could. They could. It's just very, very difficult to see now. Very difficult to see. I'm not even sure if it's an Amarin problem. It's more the state of the club.
Yeah.
But we are left in a stage where, like, he's picking Ericsson and Casemiro in midfield, John. Like, poor old Joshua Zertsky may never recover from that again. Like, I can't remember the last player who was taken off in the first half at Old Trafford by Manchester United for a performance issue alone. It leaves me to ask you, who would you keep? Which players?
Okay. Well, it might surprise you. I'd probably keep the goalkeeper, actually. I think he's not as bad as people have made out. There are errors. I'd keep Harry Maguire. I know there's a player. If you want a player that's going to fight for the club, you need that, don't you? The Morocco guy, Mazraoui, yes. De Ligt has got to improve, but obviously there's a player of class there. Listen, actually, you go through. None of these players are supposed to be that bad. They're just all bad together. Ugarte, yeah, of course. Just going to move through him. Højlund, yes, he's obviously got talent on time. At times he looks really, really good. At times he looks bad. Obviously, Amad Diallo, there's a player there. They've waited a long time for him, actually. They paid a lot of money for him. Bruno Fernandes, he might be one to cash out, actually. You do wonder if someone can take over his leadership of the team. I know that a lot of fans wouldn't agree with that. And listen, I'd have no problem with him staying. Not a lot else. I mean, the Casemiro-Eriksson thing, I mean, yes, that was a suicidal selection to play those two together. When Newcastle play as they do, when you're playing them against Joe Linton, dear me. I mean, he's going to get run all over them. Dalot has actually been a much improved player compared to what you might have said was his potential 2-3 years ago.
He's all right, yeah. He's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Yeah. I mean, there is a team there. There are players there. There are. There's not a lot to get excited about. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But there's a mid-table team there, and actually that's what Man United need this season, is a mid-table team, and then you inject slowly some stars. You try not to get too excited, but that's problematic because it is Manchester United, and you try and make it work, and you try and slowly rebuild. As I say, finances aren't great, so you're going to have to be clever in the transfer market. It's not easy for Man United now because they're Manchester United, because so everyone will put a premium on the price, but also they're not in the top market for players anymore. Mbappe doesn't want to go to Manchester United, or whatever. The elite players no longer want to go there, so they're having to be clever. The scouting department, which I presume was under the control of Dan Ashworth, has to be really, really very, very sharp. This is the thing, as I said, a lot of talented players have come. A lot of them have disappeared and having done absolutely nothing for the club. Are there other players? Are there other players, Colm? Other players that you would consider were worth it? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Kobbie Mainoo, for sure.
I mean, the thing is, Mainoo, the fact that I've forgotten about him shows that I'd be slightly concerned that he is one of these sort of shining stars. Because we had this thing all season, didn't we, last season, where brilliant going forward, but Man United opened these great big gaps. We saw that a little bit with England. If someone could get hold of Mainoo, it's all there. You've got an ability to be, a player on a, not Gerard Lampard level, but that sort of attacking midfielder that's there to just, score goals and be a creative player, but also is aware of the discipline of the job. And I don't think a manager's got quite hold of him. But yeah, but Mainoo's one, obviously.
Maybe Garnacho, if you get hold of his attitude and Hoyland, and then you suddenly have the crux of a good young group of players.
Yeah,
but you just need better quality around them in terms of the experience, lad, and that is the issue.
You could see Garnacho being one of the players that they cash out to a Spanish or Italian club for the funds to buy someone who Amorim needs, because he's probably like one of the highest premium players that they've got.
Yeah,
along with Rashford. I do not see who is going to pay much money for Rashford.
Well, he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. He's linked in the paper this morning. Well, my worry for Garnacho is he becomes another Adnan Januzaj who gets moved on, and we never really see the best of him. And like, it is the culture of it's a kind of a virus of the club. Look, listen, time is of the essence here. I just want to get your thoughts on Wayne Rooney, relieved of his duties as Plymouth Argyle manager. Why hasn't it worked for Rooney as a manager? There was talks that he was tactically a bit basic at Plymouth. He enjoyed himself in Plymouth, which I think at the start was seen as a really good thing, because he integrated well into the society, but that was kind of turned against him when results were going against him.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, he did this thing that quite a lot of managers do at the moment, which is, or younger managers, is try and play the progressive way. In the Championship, that's not always that possible. There's been a lot of casualties in the Championship this season, mostly because they're trying to play that type of way. Stoke have got rid of the manager, Hull have got rid of the manager. With Rooney, the thing is with Rooney, like, as we get to know more about Wayne Rooney, like, he seems like a really good guy who likes a night out, and it feels like, having been a player under the control of Alex Ferguson and not allowed to enjoy himself, he's decided to be the opposite of that. I know, we've all seen the clips of him doing karaoke and enjoying himself. You could have probably got away with that if you were Plymouth manager and you weren't Wayne Rooney. But as you're Wayne Rooney, you can't, and the results are poor. I sort of respect the fact that he is kept having a go.
Yeah, he's desperate for this to work. Like, he really is.
He is. But I mean, the one thing is that you flip that around, and there are people of Rooney's age that are either coaches that have worked in the game a long time. So he's at the same age as, say, Kieran McKenna. Yeah, Kieran McKenna got an injury as a young player and has worked his way up, and he is, an outstanding young manager. Would Kieran McKenna have had so many opportunities if he wasn't an outstanding coach that had worked really hard? Rooney keeps getting these jobs by starstruck owners, and it's not worked out for any of them. There may well be better coaches than Wayne Rooney that are going to do a better job with Plymouth, with Derby, with Birmingham. We've already seen. They've got Chris Martin in there who's doing a fine job, obviously with a lot of money at Birmingham City these days. But it feels to me like, I suppose one thing is that Rooney is probably aware that if he didn't work in football all the time, spare time might be an issue for him, what he gets up to in his spare time. I think Colleen may well have a view on this as well, keep him busy. But as we've seen, idle hands, has him reaching for the guitar and the karaoke machine. Let's say that. Interesting, isn't it? Wayne Rooney's only 39, but we feel like we've known him for so long. He's been a part of English culture for such a long time, and he's developed, hasn't he? Because he's not, when you see him on the overlap and stuff like that, he's quite a bright lad, Yeah. He's very sharp. He's incisive. He knows football inside out. That's the thing. And we've often had this thing in this country of how our greatest players are almost lost to the game. You have this great thing about Bobby Moore never really made it as a manager. And, none of the 66 team, apart from Jack Charlton, really achieved much as managers. But it's just that whole thing, isn't it? Like, great players so rarely, become great managers, particularly in England, though. I mean, look at the great managers across Europe, though. Pep Guardiola, very good player. Carlo Ancelotti, an excellent footballer. It can happen. It's just that in England in particular, we're not good at transferring those skills. But you've got credit for Rooney for being a football man. It's what he loves. It's what he enjoys. Maybe England could get him in and work with the strikers or something like that. Just keep him away from the boozer afterwards. That's the thing, isn't it?
John Brewin, we'll leave it there. Have a good one.
Great stuff, chaps. Lovely talking to you.
See you now.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye. It's time for the cash machine.
Off the Ball's cash machine.
There's a cool 75k up for grabs in the first cash machine of 2025. And what's more, we're going to have a guaranteed winner. Taking part is easy. You take note of the amount I've just given you. And if we call you and you give us the number, you win that cash. That is easy as that. It's €75,000 exactly. To enter, text OTB to 57557. It costs €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You have to be over 18. You are playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Full terms are on our website at offtheball.com. Get your entry in by 3 p.m. next Friday, January 10th. The cash machine will then randomly pick one entry, and it could be you. We're calling. Answer within 5 rings. Tell us the prize amount, and the cash is yours. That amount again is €75,000 exactly. Text OTB to 57557.
Off the Ball's cash machine.
Off the Ball GAA.
Well, there's one thing I'll never doubt is their character, and I probably repeat myself saying that, like, if we do get beaten, it won't be for they'll die with their boots on, like, because they just never know when they're beaten, to be honest with you, and like, they're very close.
Join in the obsession. Subscribe now at offtheball.com/join.
Off the Ball breakfast.
With UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
Yes, I know. I just need to do it on the stage. I know I can beat everybody. And he believes that. And he believes that. When he honestly believes that. Yeah. And you've got to go in. All the 4 boys in there tonight, all them 4 boys will be going in with that style of attitude. Yeah. I know I can win this. I've got a great opportunity to win this. I look at young Littler. He's got so much pressure on him. From media, from every corner, everyone's expecting it. The kid's 17. And how he's dealing with it, I think, is, second to none. It's absolutely amazing. But we're now getting to what I call the nitty-gritties. We're getting the business end of the tournament now. He's been to a final. He hasn't won one yet. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But all these guys honestly believe they can win it.
Well, Stephen Bunting is one of those. Have you ever seen anything like the swell of support behind one player like there's been for Bunting at this tournament? Like, it has been, like, those walk-ons have become spine-tingling moments. They're must-see television.
But how the audience have embraced Stephen Bunting, I think that, in all honesty, even in tonight's match, I think they can give him a set, just in that alone. Yeah. And he's, again, another confidence player. And he's riding high on confidence. I am just so excited for the matches tonight. I really am. Yeah. It's going to be a belter, Richie. Be a belter.
Linda Maher, assistant features editor at Irish Daily Mail. Good morning.
Morning.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Why is Luke Littler so special? What is it about this guy?
He is doing things, age 17, that it has taken people 20, 30 years to do in the sport of darts. Yeah. It's incredible. And that's, I think his attitude, more than anything else, nothing phases him. Nothing. This is also, you have to remember, a kid who, 2 years of his teens were COVID as well. Was that not supposed to mess up?
He never even thought about it in that context. Yeah.
So and the fact that he's so cool in front of the camera, he's so, obviously, I presume the media training has started since last year.
I was thinking that, yeah.
But it certainly wouldn't have been there before that. No. So, he was like that last year. There was absolutely nothing. Any interview, he's just perfectly calm with everybody. He's so good with the fans. And it's just, to be able to do all of that aged 17 is ridiculous.
I did think it was funny. I was listening to his post-match interview post-match interview last night, and he was asked what his plan was for today, how he was going to approach it. And I just remember this time last year and him saying about, having a pizza beforehand, just giving a very honest answer. And then his answer last night, he was like, I'll go get some sleep now, and I'll make sure I'm here nice and early because I know what time I'll be playing at exactly, because it's the only one that's on the day, and make sure I get my practice time in. And I was like, no. Go have your pizza.
Up to a few weeks ago, he was just saying he never practices. He went to 2 hours kind of warm up during the day. And you think even like Phil Taylor would tell you he practiced for 8 hours a day, And so for him to be saying that he doesn't really practice it's insane. And I'm sure it's infuriating for some of the other players.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
The sport has never seen a teenager like this, but has Darts ever seen a player like Littler, full stop?
I think the age thing, and I think how he looks was a big part of last year, the interest.
Right.
Because he doesn't look like a 17-year-old now or a 16-year-old then. And I think that caught people's imagination a lot more than if he'd just been a teenager coming in and doing this. There's a lot of the players have come up through the junior rankings, but you kind of thought they're on the edge of the scene, but they're not quite there. I think outside of him, there's not many players have kind of grasped the imagination outside of the sport. So within the sport, you see when Michael Van Gerwen started to come through, you kind of see he was something special. But again, he didn't burst onto the scene like this.
No.
What he's done in his first year it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
We were talking about Wayne Rooney just before you came into us there. Like, that feels like the comparison about bursting onto the scene. Remember the name Wayne Rooney, and everyone's remembering Luke Littler because he played Stephen Bunting last night in the semi-final. And Bunting's had a great year. He's 2024 Masters champion. And the first set's close. I mean, so Littler nearly gets a 180 start, just misses it, goes 2-0 up. Bunting goes back to 2-all. And there are moments, despite Littler winning 6-1, there are moments where Bunting could come back into it.
It didn't feel like a 6-1 game, I don't think, in fairness to Bunting. And he's had an absolutely brilliant season. And I think Ryan Joyce really gave him a tough game as well. But I think he needs that, because he's going to get one tonight. 100% he's going to get a tough game tonight. And if you think back, the Czech Open last year when he played Van Gerwen and beat him 6-1, Van Gerwen had an average of 112.1 and got beaten 6-1. It was another game where it didn't feel like that score. But this is what he does. And it was funny, they were talking the other night, and when the commentators pointed out, he doesn't get many ton-plus finishes. But that's because after 9 darts, he's usually under 100, which is ridiculous. So he's not actually taking on many ton-plus finishes. So because the scoring is just, and there's a lot of players, there's high scorers out there, and then there's good finishers. There's very few players have both, and he's one of the ones that absolutely does.
That's a neat summary of it, really, because Bunting averaged, I think, 113 in the first set. Littler was 106, maybe, something like that. So it is tight, and so. Was it more that Bunting underperformed, or are we just talking about this extraordinary talent? Can you break down for us what is it about Littler? If you take away this teenage sensation and everybody's fascinated by him, what is it about his game that's proven so successful already?
I think his scoring is incredible. And then his doubling is very, very good. It's not as good as the scoring, I don't think.
He loves the double 10.
He loves the double 10. And again, if you watch him, and Bunting is a particularly good player at it as well. Literally from 5:01, he already has in his head where he's coming down to. Littler very, very, very rarely leaves 18s. He doesn't like that side of the board, so and he's not mad on 16s either. So he plays his way to tops double 10. That's how he plays his way, and he almost doesn't want to hit double top because he knows he's going to get the double 10 unless it's his last start. He knows he'll nail the double 10. But so he's doing the same thing from early in the game. He's watching where his scores are going. Yes. A couple of times last night he tried double 18 for a double finish, double 18, double top finish, and he didn't hit it. He doesn't like it. And 16, again, he's not, where most players will go head towards 16s at the end of a game. He doesn't do that. It's tops and 10s. That's his numbers. And his 5s are quite good as well if he does happen to miss the 10. But his board management is insane. Really? You'll often hear Mardle or Part going, what's he doing? Why is he going that way? And then he nails it, and that's why he's going. His bowls actually haven't been great the last couple of games. He nailed a couple last night, the 170 last night, but the previous game they weren't brilliant, and it's something he will probably have to work on.
Does he force his opponents generally to try too hard then to compensate for Littler's tactics?
Yeah, so I think again, if somebody's coming down towards a finish that they think, oh, will I leave that? Or, they kind of, if they're maybe on a 170, they get the 2 double 20s, they might think, oh, I don't think he's going to take. No one does that against Littler. No one does, because they know he's perfectly capable of literally taking out anything on that board.
It's insane that we're going into a final that has kind of 2 very different storylines. It's kind of almost like the perfect coming together, because you have Van Gerwen, who has been here so many times before, legend of the game, hasn't had a great year, and then you have Littler, who's had this absolute breakthrough and is performing really well. How do you think both are going to approach it this evening?
I think Van Gerwen he's a very, very, very methodical guy. He will, everything will be laid out today, exactly what he's doing at what time. I think Littler will approach it a little bit more, as the day goes. But I think Van Gerwen is probably already on the board, or certainly thinking about it. It's funny, Van Gerwen would be the favourite against almost anybody else. But just not against Littler. Even if it had been Luke Humphries, I think, in the final against Van Gerwen, I still think Van Gerwen would have been the favourite, because he knows finals. He knows how to win finals. He's a very, very dominant personality, and on stage as well as off. He will, there'll be a lot of noise. Littler doesn't. He tends to kind of just, even when he gets the big shots, it doesn't really, there's not really huge celebrations or anything like that. It just tends to just be, oh, well, that's how that happened. But it's, I think he loves the crowd behind him. I don't think Van Gerwen really cares about the crowd too much. And I think that comes from being a Dutch player playing in England so much. You're not always going to get that kind of support. So you can't really rely on it. Whereas Littler does love the crowd and what they bring to his game. He kind of encourages it quite a lot as well. I think the atmosphere tonight will be brilliant, because I think there is still, a lot of the kind of older fans would still have an affinity towards Van Gerwen no matter what coming through,
I imagine the on-stage interaction between the two of them will be very different as well, in that Littler, even if you look at last night or some of the other matches that he's had, everyone's very friendly. You have the little fist bumps, or there's a slap on the back or smiles. I don't think we're going to see much of that tonight.
It's one of the things that it kind of irritates me a little bit. That
they are so friendly.
They're so friendly. And I get why. I mean, I know you spend a lot of time on the road together. But
do you think it's an age thing as well?
I think the Premier League had a lot to do with it, because they're travelling, they're seeing each other so much. The same 8 to 10 players seeing each other so much on the road for so long. But to me, it just takes away that competitive edge. Aspinall, I adore Aspinall, but he's too nice. It's like, where's the killer instinct here? Johnny Clayton the same, and you could see when Clayton played against Gerwyn Price, and they're best pals. They're both Welsh. They play in the World Cup together. But you could see Price doesn't want to get into this, but Johnny just won't let him not get into it. So he's doing the fist bumps for the good shots and that. There'd be very, very little of that tonight. If Littler hit a 9 dart, I don't think Van Gerwen would even barely acknowledge it. Well,
that's the thing, because sometimes you have that in sport where it's almost people do it, but it's like they're not looking at each other, or it's just a thing that you're expected to do, whereas it does seem genuinely friendly between a lot of the players. And I kind of agree with you. It's once or twice, if you see it happen, you're like, oh, it's kind of nice. But after that, it does take a little bit the edge away.
It is. And I thought, one of the best moments of the tournament, I thought, was when Heta hit the 9 dart. Luke Woodhouse's reaction behind him was brilliant, and it was great to see. And, that's a huge achievement for anybody. Woodhouse and Heta are probably looking at, playing Heta probably slightly better level of darts, but they're in that kind of scrapping for, the pieces kind of falling from the big table. And I think he was just so happy for it. And it was brilliant to see. But there has to be a line, and I think Asp crosses that line an awful lot, probably more than any other player. But it is nice to see, and and you can completely understand it. You see, what I thought weird in this one as well was how close the families sit to each other. They're literally on opposite sides of one table, and I just and Stephen Bunting's little son, he's the cutest.
He was breaking my heart so much.
And you could see Littler's dad, when he won last night, Littler's dad jumps up and was set, and the first thing he's like, oh no, the child, he kind of turned around and was kind of shaking his hand, giving him a little hug.
But you have no interest in this. You have no interest in this familial stuff. You want them to be bastards to each other.
Leave this at the door. So yeah, I think, so I can understand. The wives and children, they're friends. They see each other all the time. They get quite friendly with each other as well. And so there definitely is an element of that. But for me, to get a killer instinct, you need to leave that at the door.
A reminder, OTB Breakfast is with UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. What kind of a final are you expecting tonight between Van Gerwen and Littler?
It's so hard to call because, like, as I said, the last game they played, the Czech Open, like, Littler won at 6-1, but Van Gerwen had won the games of his life.
He's had a bad year, like, he's had a great last 12 months.
It's his the first year since 2011 he hasn't won a televised tournament, you know, so, and that's huge for him, and that'll be hurting him as well, and a wounded MVG is probably a dangerous MVG as well, you know, and he will want to turn that around very, very badly. I do think it's going to be tight. Hopefully tighter than the semi-finals, which were a bit of a letdown after a really good tournament.
They were strange in both finishing 6-1, but, like, again, a bit like Bunting, like Chris Dobie had moments against Van Gerwen. He just didn't capitalise.
You have to take them. Against him, you cannot let, like, literally every double that becomes available, you have to take it. And, you know, that's easy to say. It's not so easy to do. And if you remember, like, Joby in his quarterfinal, like, trying to kill off that game was torture for him, you know. So he would have had that sense of, oh God, is this happening again? What happened to him last year? You know. So, but he, like, I do think it's going to be a really, really tight final. I think I would not be one bit surprised if there was a 9-darter. They will both be gunning for it.
Littler looked gutted he didn't get it.
Yeah,
he did.
And, you know, so I think they will absolutely be. I think there'll be bigger finishes probably from Van Gerwen.
Yeah.
Again, just because Littler gets his score down so quickly that he doesn't end up with the big finishes as much as other players. But I think he needs 19 180s to equal Michael Smith's record. So it's a lot. He got 13 last night, so it's 6 more than that. It's a lot. But if the game goes on longer, there's a very good chance he will. And again, because he's so laid back, you think these things don't matter to him. I think they usually matter to him. And, you know, but again, to be setting these kind of records before you can even have a drink to celebrate.
That's such a good way to put it, like, But it's probably like the duck analogy for Littler, and that inside I'd say he's going mad. But he wears the competitiveness with enjoyment in his face. Like, but I think what's really interesting in this final is, like, you're talking about two of, if not the two biggest stars in darts for the last decade, but they both have experience of losing this final. So Littler as recently as last year. And you mentioned Van Gerwen knows how to win these things. He's won it 3 times. He's also lost 3 finals as recently as 2 years ago. So not quite the scars in their head, but I do wonder, maybe you don't have an answer to this, but who will be in the other person's head more tonight?
Yeah, I think the feeling I get from both of them would be that Littler would be in MVG's head.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I genuinely think Littler plays the board far more than he plays the person across from. And I think MVG can get sucked in a little bit to what's going on with the other player. You know, the best way to tell is how big the booms are, you know, when you hit something and that you get that boom, you know, and that's how you kind of tell whether it's like watching Garen Price. You can tell when he's rattled. He thinks he's portraying, you know, this, I'm not rattled. The bigger you do that, the more we know you are, you know. So I think the first set, I think the ball to throw first is going to be huge. And I think the first set is very big. But if anyone takes a 3-set lead, I couldn't see it being turned around.
It's 7 sets tonight, isn't it, for the final? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a long match.
It's really long.
Yeah. But again, we thought Littler last year that would hurt him. Going into the set play because he hadn't really done that before, and the longer matches, just nothing touches him.
Do you think, and this is kind of a slightly unfair question, but do you think, say, if Littler was to lose tonight and lose somewhat comfortably in the scoreline, do you think it impacts his burgeoning reputation because then it's 2 defeats in a row in the final? Or do you think it's irrelevant because of what he's achieved for such a young age?
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant. I think, like, if you think last year when he lost, he went out and won the Bahrain Open like 3 weeks later. You know, and that was his first kind of big tournament. And it was just like, okay, let's just get on with this.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is what I need to do.
Probably has that, like, benefit of youth where everything is exciting and new. And, like, if he was to go on a run of a couple of more years and it suddenly became a thing that he kept getting to these finals and not getting over the line, then maybe. But he just still seems too young to...
Yeah, it's like what happened with Michael Smith when he went so many finals, without winning, and across, not just in the world, across them all, and then I think you're right. I think it does start to get inside you after that. But I still think he'll just move on, and I think the Premier League was a huge win for him. First of all, because like I remember sitting on the show this time last year saying, does he deserve to be in there? He's literally come from nowhere. He's done really well in this one tournament, but lots of people can say that. Lots of players can say that. And he went and won it, and that's a grueling tournament to win. And he just, it looked like nothing to him.
So Littler doesn't need to win this as much as Van Gerwen.
Yeah, I think so. I think Van Gerwen needs a win badly, and I think it would, and it would also tip his final.
Yes, his win record. 4-3 ahead. Yeah. So what will happen?
Oh God, I do think Littler will win it.
Do you?
Yeah, I do think Littler will win it. I think closely. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I just think the occasion won't get to him as much. Nothing gets to him. I think a winning double won't come in the first few darts.
Do you think
either of them?
Littler's age will be in Van Gerwen's head? That he'd be the sort of person that being defeated on this big stage by a 17-year-old. Yeah.
In a way, and I think his numbers will start to annoy Van Gerwen, because a lot of the records he's breaking are Van Gerwen's, so I think that will start to irritate him a lot. But I can't wait for it. I can't wait.
The quarter to 8 tonight?
Programme starts 8 o'clock, so probably about 4:15, yeah.
Have you been to Ali Pally?
I have, yeah. We went 2019. We went. AD Lewis missed a 9-darter by about half an inch the day we were there.
And what's it like?
It's brilliant, and it's funny. Like the crowd gets talked about so much. I don't think there's any sport in the world where the crowd gets talked about as much as the Ali Pally crowd. One of the reasons I think it's so that crowd can win or lose matches. Like it genuinely can. And again, I don't know any sport in which that it affects so much. Like I think Rob Owen lost this year because of how he reacted to the crowd. Cameron Menzies was in tears at one. Like that was a really, really hard watch to see him in his first round match. He was literally in tears, having what looked like a panic attack by the end of the game. Ricardo Petrescu, again, I think just let the crowd get to him, try to play up, to try to be friendly, try to get them to turn. That's not happening. You have to forget about them. If they're not on your side, you have to forget about them. It's really good fun. And actually we did Blackpool last year as well, which is great fun too, but it's much easier logistically.
Yeah.
So,
is this professionally now or personally that you're doing?
Personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it is. It's great crack. The Ali Pally it's brilliant. It's just.
Do you have to book a whole table?
No. So they're just one really long.
Oh yeah.
Long
Okay.
table. Yeah. So you. My advice actually is if you are booking, don't book seats facing each other, book them beside each other, because they're quite wide tables. So if you're sitting with someone, they're kind of over the far side of the table from you. So a lot of it is just like. But it is really good fun. People say, "Oh, many of them are there for the darts," and you'll find, and if you watch matches closely, as it gets towards the business end of games, if they're tight, you will notice an audible difference in how the crowd react, and that they are actually going, "Oh my God, this is a great game here," and kind of sitting down and actually paying attention to it. But I think every year it gets bigger, and every year the crowd thing gets bigger. People trying to get on TV and all that kind of thing, But I thought Aspinall this year, he literally stopped a match against Andrew Gilding to watch a guy downing a pitcher. And won, So
admiringly so as well.
So it's again that this is Asp kind of playing to the crowd a little bit as well, But it's I think there are certain players who we are Garen Price a couple of years ago coming out with the ear defenders on them, just ridiculous. I remember we were sitting in a pub watching this, we couldn't hear it, and he came out and we were like, what is going on here? Thought it was a joke at first, and then he keeps them on, and it was, so there are players who let it get to them far too much, and there are players who try to play to the crowd too much. So somewhere in the middle, I think, where you can get them on your side, but kind of pay as little attention to them as possible, But I highly recommend it as someone, day out.
As someone who's been there and has watched a lot of darts, and Colm asked me this question at the start of the show: if you were a darts player, what would be your walk-on song?
Ooh, I do like I Predict a Riot.
Let's go.
Kaiser Chiefs. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do, and I'd say, Rids is not happy because his nickname is Riot, but someone else uses it, so he can't use it. He was great this year as well. I think we haven't mentioned him yet, but Callan Rids, he was, and he does it every year at the Worlds. He has a really good Worlds, and then kind of disappears for the rest of the year. And he needs to push on from it now and kind of take what he's done here and try and bring it into.
He needs the big occasion.
That's it's and they kind of some his worst results are on the floor ones where there's no crowd there. So he just despite the fact that they weren't exactly singing the kindest song to him, but he does I think he does kind of buzz off the crowd. So, but he does need to learn how to take that into other events now. But yeah, I think I predict you're right. Yeah, I think maybe
that's a good one.
Yeah, Martha Driscoll's been in touch on YouTube to say Luke to win by 2 sets.
I wouldn't disagree with it. Yeah, I do. Yeah, as I say, I think it's going to be tight enough, and I think whoever gets the ball to start I think it is going to be big.
Dublin GAA, Manchester United, tennis.
Tennis.
Where does darts sit in those clubs?
Second to football. Yeah, I had the best football dartsmans.
That's what we were talking about that earlier. Where does the love of darts come from?
My parents always played kind of just in the local pub, so there was always a dartboard in our house. They watched it, and then my best friend is married to Alan Evans' son in Wales. She lives over there. So, but yeah, it was just always on in the house at Christmas, and then it kind of grew from that. And my brother's really into it. So, and now my nephew's got really into it. He's just joined a new club over in Cabra for under 17s. 50 kids every Monday night and a waiting list, which is amazing. And that's the Littler effect, That's the Littler effect.
We have a dartboard in here somewhere.
It's just over there.
There you go. Yeah, we should have set it up for you there before. Do you like?
I didn't say much good at it.
It feels like the sport is growing, especially the Worlds every year, more and more.
Yeah.
Has it reached a ceiling? Can it get bigger than it is now?
I think so. I think I have a feeling it's going to go on the move.
Do you?
Yeah. It's certainly the early rounds, the pre-Christmas rounds. I think they might start doing a bit in Holland, Germany. Like if you look at the amount of German fans coming over now to London every year, it's enormous. Like. They took a huge percentage of tickets this year. So I think they have to be looking at that because, look, to them, it's monetising, and I think it can get a little unfair with the crowd if it's in England all the time, then the English players always have an advantage. I couldn't see them moving the whole thing, but I could see them moving maybe some of the early rounds before Christmas. I think that has to be something they're thinking about. I don't know how that will affect it. We could be on the list, so it might be nice, to kind of get some of those early round matches here. So it's, but I think that's definitely something they're going to do. But I don't like. Funny, last year I noticed more people I've never heard say the word darts were texting me about it last year, and that was Littler. It was all about him. But again, this year there's a lot more people watching it, and kind of a lot more conversations around it where you wouldn't expect to have those conversations usually.
Linda Maher, assistant speech editor at Irish Daily Mail. Thanks very much for that. Do you want to stay with us for our birthdays game? Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, good. Don't need to explain it. So I have a load of them here. Jeez, did you do them yesterday? Or is just loads of birthdays today?
No, we did them yesterday.
Well, January 3rd is a big birthday for many people. So Limerick hurling sensation Keane Lynch is what age today?
25.
You're saying 25? Linda?
Slightly older, 26.
You're closer. 29.
Is he that old?
He is, yeah.
Jeez.
Michael Schumacher.
62.
54.
62.
So close. 56. Florence Pugh.
Oh.
Who's that now? Actress, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's good, like.
Yeah. She's in that new one with Andrew Garfield.
Social Network.
No. Is he in this one? Oh, he is, yeah.
He's a co-founder.
28. No, she's definitely older. She's like in her.
In between, 29. Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones is what age today. He's the bass player. Led Zeppelin. He's dead now. No, is he dead now? He's not dead. Oh, this is the age he died. He's alive.
I guess 72.
You're going 72.
81.
Very close. 79. 79. I know the drummer's stage, yeah. Are you sure John Bon Schultz? Is he? Who am I thinking of? I looked it up there in a second. Johnny Evans, Manchester United centre half. They're very reliant on him still. What age do you think Johnny Evans is?
37.
Wow, did you both look at that, did you? Bang on. 30, there's a yay for that. There's your celebration. Environmentalist Greta Thunberg.
21.
I thought she was still in her teens.
You're saying 21. Kathleen is saying?
19.
It's very close again. 22. You're getting so suspiciously close. I think you've seen the list. And you're like, I won't be too obvious. Alan Cawley, Sligo's finest. League of Ireland legend.
I just want to insult Alan now, but I guess. 45.
45. Interesting is all I'll say to that. Which you will say?
41.
Oh, 43. Peter Taylor managed England in an interim basis at the turn of the century. He was the man who gave David Beckham the captain's armband for the first time. What age is Peter Taylor today? Very similar age, if not the exact same, to Martin O'Neill that we were talking about earlier.
72.
He's 72, correct. Sorry, I was just caught up with John Paul Jones. He's alive.
I was like,
sorry
wow,
about
you're
that,
really
John.
building the
Sorry
kind of
about that.
suspense for that one.
Just two more to go here. How will I describe Mel Gibson? Mel Gibson, anyway. Lethal Weapon star, director of Apocalypse. Apocalypse. What's the other one? Oh, Passion of the Christ. Whatever happened to Mel Gibson?
I don't know, actually. A name I haven't heard in a long
I got to shake the head there, but the producers have to say, don't say anymore. Anyway, what age is old Mel today?
I gotta go.
He's
68.
Okay, interesting that you would say that.
I'm going to say 70.
Oh, lads, in between. 69. And finally, the former Leeds United midfielder. Did he play for England? Lee Boyer. He was briefly very good around 2000, 2001. Got to move to Newcastle. Fought with Kieran Dyer on the pitch.
I'm going to go 50.
Okay, interesting.
48.
Bang, what a way to end it. 48.
I've never got so many of those. I'm actually so impressed with myself.
Thanks for playing
I
the
hate the birthdays normally.
Linda. It's actually on the running order here for Monday's show at 9:30, so feel free to call back in there for 2 minutes. We're back Monday with the return of Gilroy. Gilroy will have the performance rankings. Jonathan Wilson will be on to talk about the weekend's Premier League. Let's see what happens at Anfield. We'll have live commentary of that. Liverpool versus Manchester United. We'll talk about the World Darts final and plenty more besides. Have a great weekend, the first weekend of 2025. Goodbye.
Off the ball, breakfast.